Okay, good morning, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Thank you for your patience. This morning we are, I'm sorry, let me go ahead and, Ms. Huerta, if you'll call the roll, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Paulette Guajardo.
Present.
Council members Roland Barrera.
Here.
Sylvia Campos. Gil Hernandez. Here. Michael Hunter. Here. Jim Klein will be late. Mike Pesley. Everett Roy.
Present.
Dan Suckley.
Here.
No.
City Manager Peter Zanoni.
Present.
City Attorney Miles Risley. Mayor and Council, a quorum of the Council and the required charter officers are present to conduct the meeting.
Great, thank you, Ms. Huerta. So this morning we are here, this is it our third council workshop?
This is our fourth.
Our fourth council workshop, and today...
Actually, it's our fifth, I'm sorry. It's our fifth, yeah.
Well, we're way up.
Fifth and final, yes.
Councilman Pesley thought it was number 18.
Right.
So our fifth council workshop.
Yes.
So thank you all for joining us today. Today, the first item is going to be, we'll discuss capital improvements plan. Then we're going to go into the... are we doing hotel occupancy second or third?
The hotel occupancy will be second.
Second?
Yeah,
okay. And then potential budget adjustments.
Right.
So you want to speak a little on that?
Yes, I can. Yeah. So after the reason more department heads are here this morning is we will go over the capital budget first. That has an impact on many of our departments, and so they're here to support Jeff Edmonds, who will be presenting. And then Heather's going to show how our hotel occupancy revenues are being recommended for the new budget for FY25. And then after that, Brett Otting, our CEO of Visit Corpus Christi, will come in and provide the council an update on his work program for the next 12 months. And talk to you about the visitor industry in general. And then we'll conclude this workshop with a budget wrap-up. And what that is the list of potential amendments that we have been tracking since July 30th when we first presented the budget. So it's been about 4 or 5 weeks since we presented, and we're tracking the budget office's potential amendments expressed by the council and by the community to include at our 7 workshops that we had in the community. Councilman Pesley brought up this Tuesday that we are working Tuesday coming up, and that's in part because of our tax assessor collector at Nueces County, Kevin Kieschnick, who's a partner with the city, and we respect his partnership. So to be able to get the tax bills out in time, he requested a few years ago that we move forward our process, and so that's why next Tuesday will be the first reading on the budget and the revenues, and then the following Tuesday, the 10th, will be the budget adoption. So we're on the final stretch of the budget, and it's been a decent process given some of the financial challenges that we saw this year over the last 5 years. But as we've said on numerous occasions, we are a strong financially managed city. This budget provides property tax relief, it eliminates fees, and it continues to invest in critical and most basic and important services like police, fire. It has more funding for streets, it improves parks, and so on. So we're on the final stretches. Our final video that has been developed, the video series to help explain the budget to the community and the employees, was released last night. It's got some great footage in there of 10 key capital projects. There's many more, but that's a great example of what this city is doing based on this city council's leadership. We are rebuilding this city just about everywhere you can look, and so the videos are great. If you haven't seen it yet, that's a great way to see some of the footage of the projects out there. So, Mayor, unless there's any questions, we're going to have Jeff Edmonds come up and begin the first presentation.
Great. Good morning, Mr. Edmonds.
Good morning, Mayor, council members. Jeff Edmonds, Director of Engineering Services. Some of you might be wondering why I'm up here presenting this item, and I'm probably wondering a little bit about that myself. But I think if we get a few slides in, I think you'll see the logic of why I'm presenting this. So we're going to be going over the FY25 CIP. This is the big book that you get every year. First off, I want to say this is really not my work product. This is a collaborative effort. The primary editor of this is the Office of Management and Budget. I would say Camille Terrace is the editor-in-chief. of putting this together. All of the operating departments collaborate with this. They communicate all their needs to the budget office, and of course, all of this is reviewed and approved by the city manager. Once the CIP is approved, this becomes marching orders for me and my department to get these projects implemented. And in that sense, engineering functions like a program management office for delivery of the CIP. In fact, for a period of about 3 years, they called it capital programs. And it historically has been engineering services, then went back to engineering services, but I think capital programs are a little more descriptive of what we do. Okay, what is the CIP program? It's a comprehensive 10-year investment plan and investing in our community and capital projects. So when I first joined the city in 2015, this process was mostly about producing the book. It's like, hey, we just got to get a book and go get the approvals that are required by the charter. And some of the departments didn't even participate. Some didn't really engage in this. And about 2018, they made the decision to actually reinstitute a capital budget office. And that function was moved out of engineering into what's now the Office of Management and Budget. And then 2019, I think it's the first year that we really integrated it with the annual budget process. You know, prior to that, it was looked at as two completely separate things. Now, as part of the annual budget, when departments come and request their annual operating budget, they also have to review their capital needs requests, and not only their short-term needs, but also going out to the long-range 10-year plan. So we're still improving this process. We're refining it. We get better every year. I would say, you know, I've been involved with this for 10 years, and we're the best we've ever been at this. Again, I want to give a shout out to Camille Terrace, who is really the editor-in-chief of this. Raise your hand, Camille. Also, Alan Morgan, who has taken over the position that was vacated by Camille. Of course, you know he's moved over to CCW. He continued to work on this in spite of his new role. And Alan Morgan has taken over the position vacated by Camille, and there's a good chance Alan will be standing here at this microphone next year. Okay, this is a new report this year. This is out there. It's on the web, cctexas.com. This is basically a report card on our delivery of the FY24 CIP. In this presentation, we're going to be focusing on both of those, both the FY25 CIP and the 24 report card, and we're going to be kind of switching back and forth between these two documents. So what is the CIP? The CIP is it's a policy on making capital investments. It's a plan. I can't emphasize that enough. This is a planning document. And there are 3 levels of information that are captured in this plan. You have what's called the annual capital budget, and that's the year 1 of the CIP program. That is encumbrances that we expect to make in year 1. The short-range plan is years 1 through 3, and for a project to be in the 1 through 3, there's got to be funding sources identified to be able to execute that project. Now, we are also requiring people to be looking out to 10 years. So in that 4 through 10 category, those are future needs. But we haven't necessarily identified how we're going to fund that. In order for a project to move from long range into short range, we've got to identify those funding sources. This is a graphic that we publish every quarter in that quarterly budget and performance report. This is a snapshot on our progress on the general obligation bond projects. This is a special category of projects because GO bond funding must be approved by a voter referendum. And we take that covenant with the voters very seriously, and we want the public to have confidence that we can deliver the projects that they approve with their vote. So this is how we're doing currently on this. Of course, Bond 22 is the most recent, and we've got several projects that are poised to go to bid, so we expect that bar to go up very quickly in the next few months. There's some lingering projects from Bond 14 and 18. There were some Harbor Bridge-related projects that have been somewhat delayed because of the interaction with Harbor Bridge. And we've got a couple of projects on Bond 18 where we had a business failure with one of our AE firms. So we had to reassign those projects, and those are actually getting ready to go to bid hopefully next month. Now, this slide is a summary of this CIP report card. What this says, there were 300 projects that were approved in the FY24 CIP. Now, of those 300 projects, 229 met their planned encumbrances. So 71 of those projects we're calling delayed, and what that means is that the encumbrance that was planned in that year one was not made. So in numbers of projects, that means about 76% of the projects made their encumbrances for a total of $524 million. Now, I'd like to put that in perspective a little bit. So the first year that I was involved in this, the CIP was $265 million. And of that, we probably got, in that year one, $180 million encumbered. So currently, we're doing probably about 3 times what we did in terms of annual throughput in 2015-2016 timeframe. Unfortunately, we didn't get everything encumbered that was shown in year one. So there was $703 million.
Mr. Edmonds, if you'll hold on one second. Councilman Pusley?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So, Jeff, explain to us what you mean by encumbered.
Encumbered means that we have awarded a contract. In most cases, this is going to be contracts that come to council awards. We sign the contract. It's entered into the system as an obligation of funds.
Okay, so it doesn't necessarily mean the project is started.
Well, when you say started, it doesn't mean the contractor's mobilized, but it means those funds are obligated.
But for the most part, the projects are started, right? I mean,
I would consider it started, but you might drive by the project and not see any excavation equipment or anything.
So encumbered means we have contracted with outside contractors or whatever
Correct.
the case may be.
Contracts have been awarded and executed.
So
and work has begun as well. I mean, if you look at most of the projects, you know, there's maybe 1 or 2, like Elizabeth Street was just awarded about 3 weeks ago. You won't see any work yet.
Okay.
But Bill Witt Pool, the Police Training Academy, the fire station, Everhart Road, you know, work is underway. So encumbered means that range of contracts awarded just today by City Council, say,
right,
all the way to the project's almost 90% complete. It's a range. So with 300 projects, you know, any one of those.
But even though we show that whatever that amount is,
right,
whatever the encumbrance, total encumbrance is, doesn't necessarily mean that money's going to get spent in that budget year.
Right, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's one barometer to show progress.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, as we go forward, that's an important distinction that I would like for us to make sure people understand.
No problem.
Thank you.
Okay. So unfortunately, we didn't get everything encumbered that we had shown in the year one. So we were about 3/4 there, whether you're talking about the numbers of projects or the amount of funding. So what sort of things cause these projects to be what we're calling delayed? I would say probably the most common factor is that our understanding when we are putting these projects into the CIP is incomplete. You know, we usually have a conceptual understanding of the project, but as you go through from concept to bid documents, your understanding grows, and you understand there are interrelations that you become aware of down the road. There are interdependencies. And as that happens, a lot of times the scope evolves, and you find out things that take time that you hadn't anticipated at the beginning of the project when you put in the CIP. So that, I would say, is the most common thing that we discover complications as we're going through the design process. Sometimes it's due to external dependencies that we really have no control over, such as permitting, like Army Corps permitting. That's a real crapshoot. Nobody can predict how long it's going to take you to get an Army Corps permit on a project. Sometimes it's just coordination with external stakeholders or funding agencies. There can be real estate acquisition, things like that. Sometimes we get a project out for bid and we get no bidders or too few bidders, and then we have to re-advertise. So those are all things that can push that encumbrance downstream, and you might not be able to get that contract awarded in the fiscal year that you originally anticipated. Sometimes it's just a difficult decision point that requires us to do more analysis and study before we can make a firm decision on something. But overall, we have dramatically improved this process. We're getting a whole lot better at predicting when things can get done, how long they're going to take.
Well, Mr. Edmonds, and I'm going to interject because I think that's something to really highlight. You have 300 projects. 76% of those are on schedule. That's something to really emphasize. I understand the ones that are delayed and why, and we understand that, but let's really highlight, this is impressive. You 300 projects across how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 different departments, Peter. That's
yeah. Jeff is being he's playing up the where we didn't meet the mark. But Mayor, as you said, I'm glad you did that. This is tremendous success for the city. Jeff said one thing he said a few moments ago was 6 years ago our program was $200 million and we were barely delivering that. Now it's $700 million and we're delivering almost 75% success. So. And the reasons, if you look at the reasons like we did for weeks when we were preparing this budget, they're all legitimate. It's things like, and the things that are out of our control, things like there were no bids for a project, so we had to go back out for bid, or there was a fatal flaw in the conditions that we see that we didn't know. The unforeseen conditions in a road project. Say just yesterday at Comanche, there are 3 covered up manholes from probably 20, 30 that they didn't know about, so that slows the project. So the good news is we're moving forward. One thing we did this summer with all the executives is we're going to add this to their performance appraisal, which is they need to have at least 80% mark on projects on schedule. So if we say, if they tell us in the capital budget that I'm going to encumber the money this year, they need an 80% success rate on that to have a high mark on performance.
Right.
That's why this report that Camille created is a good tool. We're going to use that going forward.
I was just going to ask who created this. Camille, this is awesome.
Right.
And I want the public to know, why is this so important? I think this is extremely important.
Right.
Because the more efficient we are, the more we get done with the tax dollar.
Right.
The longer these things, get delayed, the higher the cost goes, and then they come back here for, the amendments or change orders, if you will. So anyway, this is great. The scorecard's great, and I think it's wonderful that we have 75%, 76% of all of these projects on schedule.
Right.
That's really outstanding.
And that's a record volume of contract awards.
Wonderful.
In 1 year, $524 million.
That's a city record, you said?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we have a new record.
It's amazing. Councilman Pusley.
Yeah, this is extremely important because I will tell you, before I got here, years past, the city was highly criticized by the voting population who said, okay, we approve these bonds and then you don't get them built. And so the fact that we've come 100 miles from
exactly.
So this is the mayor's right. This is extremely important and a real success report card of this city and for the taxpayers who give us permission to do these projects and support them with their tax money.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Good summary.
Okay, Mr. Edmonds, go ahead.
Okay, this is a summary of what's in the new proposed.
Actually, don't go ahead. Hold on a second. We have another comment or question. Councilman Hernandez.
So thank you, and I appreciate this. This is the success metrics that I was referring to about being able to look at and pass what we're doing. I know in the past we'd only got to about 50% of these projects, but this goes back to the comments that I had in the last budget we did about making sure that we have a realistic budget. I understand 76% is probably better than we've done in many years, but it's still, it's what, 500 million versus the 700 million of the budget that we had, right? 750 million, what was it last year?
It was 700.
That's correct, 703, so 524 million is on schedule.
Right.
So less than 200 is not.
I understand we have some of the issues, and hopefully the process of us, trying to design these projects, I mean, what the GO side of it is, what, 20% of it, 25% of the projects versus the revenue bonds?
Yeah, we'll find
Maybe.
that. Yeah.
It's probably, and it's trending down, I would say.
Okay, so I mean, a lot of that still is in the utility work that we're doing in water and wastewater. Trying to have this approach of being as realistic as we can in the budget, so we're not necessarily providing information to the public saying we have a certain size budget when we're getting 76% of it, and it's not a bad thing. I'm just saying we need to make sure that whatever we're planning is realistic and achievable.
Right. We probably, Councilman, what we'll get you is, because we went over them, it took, days and days, but all of the reasons why the projects weren't 100% encumbered, that 25% or so are legitimate in terms of it's out of our control. It's things like the project came in too high, the bid, so we put it back out for bid. Or there were no bidders, or we needed, the engineer, the design firm said, you know what, we have to do one more thing before we put this out to bid. So the staff, the team here that's with us today, they did everything in their power to move those projects forward. Some things were unforeseen, and so the goal is to continue to get to a higher percentage rate. We know 75% is better than 50. And as you said, though, if we say we're going to spend 100% of it, we need to do 100%. And that's why we're setting a performance goal for 80% in executives' performance plans, appraisal plans. Obviously, we want 100, but there's some things that are out of their control. So
I wanted to ask about that because a lot of times when I reach out to a particular department, and I'm not going to pick on anybody specifically, but I'll just use streets as an example. I'll ask them, what's going on with this particular street? Well, I need to go ask engineering. Or they forward it to Rotna. Okay, what involvement do the departments have in their own projects?
Jeff can answer that, but there's extensive involvement through the design process. In fact, we met as a team recently to make sure the directors are signing off on those 30, 60, 90 to 100% design factors. And then when the construction's underway, we're retooling the organization to know that even though Jeff is overseeing the project, the department owns it, and they need to make sure they're satisfied with it. So,
well, I was asking that question. Should we consider looking at, like, for example, I'm just using streets as an example, having that project manager work for streets, since it's going to be something they're responsible for? I mean, if they're not responsible for the construction, then they get it turned over to them, and they don't have that aspect. I mean,
I wouldn't recommend that. It's a different delivery model. Most cities, and at least others that I've worked for, the other one I worked for in Texas, it's a centralized design. It's a centralized inspection process, meaning all the inspectors work for the engineer. Because if you have them all over the plate,
Gentlemen, let's keep to the
well, this has to do with the delivery of the project, right? How much, because the engineering department is spread out, right? They do water projects, they do wastewater projects, they do street projects, they do park projects, they do all these other, individual projects. They're not focused on one particular department.
Yeah, it's a management issue, Councilman. We're moving on. Let's move on, but finish your comments.
I understand, and I understand you don't like me talking, but that's fine.
That's not true. Are you talking to me or talking to him?
Well, both. Okay.
No, Councilman, I just want to stay on, we only have so much time. I want to stay on track.
I get it, but it's an important issue.
Oh, no, I understand.
It's, if we're only delivering 75%, and you're going to be judging the departments on the performance to deliver these, and they have very little control over it, you got to give them more control.
No, they have more control. Yeah. If the project,
it's not been my experience. that that's the
Okay.
case.
Councilman, that's a conversation you need to have with city manager.
Well,
Today, we're talking about, not here,
I'm
today,
putting
we're
it
talking
out for
about.
public consumption.
I understand.
Putting it out
Today,
for
we're
public
talking
consumption.
about the CIP card, the budget here. So let's, you've got the mic.
all right, so we'll have that conversation. I think there can be more involvement by the departments, but it's not been my experience that that's the case.
Okay, that's noted, Councilman, thank you.
Councilman Roy.
Wow, how do you expect me to follow that? I will say this, and I wanted to really exaggerate the point in terms of this landmark. This is really important. I mean, we've covered a lot of things in this budget, but I think this report card piece is extremely important in terms of where we stand in the city. You know, we get a lot of scrutiny. There's a lot of people out there that have comments and they think that, okay, I can build a better mousetrap. I can do it better if given the opportunity, right? But at the end of the day, when you take a look at this report card and where we're at, it is unbelievable to see that we're at 76%. The other thing that I really like is the fact that the city manager, he could have said 75%, you know, in the future, but he raised the bar to 80%. We understand, and I do believe, as in any business model, that there always are going to be things that you can't achieve due to outside circumstances. But I really think it's important, and we were in a meeting last night, and I won't go into details, but we came under a lot of scrutiny. And that's okay, and that was a combination of city staff, our elected officials, and everyone, because the public had a concern. But I will tell you here that the beautiful thing about this and our accomplishment is that it speaks, and I want to use Mayor McComb's word. I think he used to say it's yeoman's, it shows yeoman's work. Never really kind of understood that was until I watched the Amish show. But when you take a look at where we're at, it really is a tribute to the directors, assistant city managers, the staff. It takes a village, even down to the line laborer, to be able to make this accomplishment, and it is very important. Don't take this accomplishment lightly. It is extremely important because it is probably one of the most important benchmarks to see where we're at with the city. And also, it's a direct correlation of where we're at with our city manager and staff.
Absolutely.
And it is a direct reflection on his leadership.
That's right.
So to me, it's very important, and it's also a direct reflection on this council. I think this overall, we have a great council, and the fact that we're part of that leadership to be able to get to where we're at.
Yeah.
And I just want everybody to say, I want to say thank you and understand that this is a huge accomplishment.
Yeah.
I mean, we should be, when we went over that slide, we should have had confetti drop from the ceiling. So,
Streamers and
Thank you.
balloons, yeah. Thank you, Councilman Roy. Very well said. And so, yeah, thank you,
Well,
Jeff.
can I
go ahead.
stop here?
Yeah.
drop the mic.
Let's go back to the presentation. So this is a snapshot of where we are in the FY25 CIP. So there are a total of 272 projects. Of those, 175 are ongoing projects. There are 66 projects where the funding was moved from 24 to 25 because we didn't get the encumbrances made. There are 4 projects that are coming in from long range to short range, and there are 27 new projects. So the total on that is 272. And the total amount is just over $1 billion. And obviously the tallest bar there is water, and I think we know what that is.
Okay.
Okay, going forward, we're going to be summarizing the information that's in this report, and it's a 47-page report, but it's got detailed information on all 300 of the projects that were in the FY24 CIP. So we're going to do it by area. It's the 10 areas that CIP areas that we have, and there'll be 2 slides on each area. We're going to have 1 slide that goes over the FY24 CIP scorecard, and then the second slide is going to summarize what's in the FY25 CIP. So airport is up first because we're doing it in alphabetical order. It just so happens that airport actually probably has the best on-schedule performance in the budget. And I will say during my 10 years doing this, that has consistently been the case. Now, Kevin Smith believes that they're simply just better than the rest of us. Now, it might just be that they have good luck. Now, they're saying in project management that successful project managers are lucky, and the more they plan, the luckier they get. So I believe part of the reason that airport does really well with this is that FAA requires very robust master planning, and FAA funds that planning. And so my little soapbox is that having a robust plan and following that plan correlates very well with successful project delivery. So there was just one project that was shown as delayed on the airport CIP, and that was the East GA hangars. And that project was actually canceled, and an agreement was reached with a third party to lease and also rehabilitate those hangars. So with the FY25 CIP, we've got 5 ongoing projects plus 2 new projects. There's a total of 7 projects for about $3.4 million. Okay, the next area was the economic development area. We had 30 projects in the FY24 CIP that totaled about $28.5 million. 20 of those 30 are on schedule. 10 are being reported as delayed. So we're about 2/3 on schedule in that area. And this area encompasses the American Bank Center, C District projects, seawall, and TERS projects. So there's been some resequencing of activities related to ABC that's affected some of this. Some of them are coastal projects, which have involved permitting issues and things like that. And again, there's detailed notes in this report that explains those individual project statuses. Okay, the FY25 summary, we have 14 ongoing projects. There are 9 projects where that first year funding is being moved into FY25, and then we've got 13 new projects for a total of 36 projects, total value just under $35 million. Parks and Rec scorecard, there are 52 projects in FY24 for a total of $63 million. We've struggled a little bit with some of these parks projects. There are 32 that are moving on schedule with a total of $24 million, but we've had 20 projects that were delayed, and the ones that have been delayed are some of the more larger projects. So that's why the percent budget on schedule and percent of projects in terms of numbers are a little bit different. Now, 5 of those projects are the Harbor Bridge related projects. That totals up to $16 million, and as you know, that's a complicated situation with some external stakeholders and also TxDOT, FHWA, but we're expecting that project to start moving forward and get construction contracts awarded in the very near future. Another thing that was totally beyond their control, we decided that we wanted to put a police substation where they had planned their dog park, so we had to go back to the drawing board on the dog park and resite that within the park. Some of the marina projects are held up because we felt like there was some utility work that needed to be done before we could do the facilities, so we had to tap the brakes a little bit on those T-head facility projects. Another example is the Greenwood ball field project. We were realizing that there's a funding shortfall to do what we want to do out there, so we're seeking supplemental funding on Bond 24 for that. So that's a project that should be able to go to construction fairly quickly after November, assuming the bond passes. So for FY25, 23 ongoing projects. We're moving the funding for 20 of those projects from FY24 to FY25, and then there are 2 new projects for a total of almost $72 million. Public facility scorecard, we're doing very well on that. There's 26 projects for a total of $19 million, and the number, based on the number of projects, 92% are on schedule. On budget, 63% on schedule. One of the ones that's delayed there was the DSD remodel, and that was due to a decision to of Frost to vacate that first floor and us to incorporate that area into their remodel. So FY25 summary, 17 ongoing projects plus 2 that are being moved forward for a total of 19 projects at $12 million for FY25. Public health and safety, now this includes police, fire, and solid waste. They have 22 projects for a total of $57 million. 15 of those are on schedule for a total of 32, and we have 7 projects that have been delayed that total $25 million. So some of the issues that have delayed projects, we had some siting issues with the solid waste compost facility. There was also some TCEQ permitting issues with one of their other projects. And the Far South substation, we're having to get some supplemental funding on that to be able to move that into construction. So for FY25, 9 ongoing projects. Moving forward, 7 delayed projects. There are 2 new projects for a total of 18 projects, totaling $29 million. Streets, 57 projects tracked with an $87 million total. We have 11 that are delayed. I think our own time percentages on these are pretty good, 81% based on numbers of projects and 71% based on the encumbrances. So we have 32 ongoing projects for streets. There are 11 that are having the funding move forward and 1 new project for a total of just under $79 million. Gas doing very well. They have 8 projects at $20 million. There's 1 project that was delayed. That was for their construction division office, and they haven't been able to settle on a site for that, and that's why that hasn't moved forward. So for 25, there's that 1 project moving forward, plus the 7 continuing projects, and for a total of just under $27 million. Okay, stormwater, there's 12 projects for $65 million. There were 2 that were delayed. One is the North Beach Drainage Project, and we're actually hoping to get that advertised for bid next month. And there was a building for the Storm Division of Public Works that has been held up to try and integrate that into a master plan for that Civitan complex. So 10 projects moving forward on schedule, plus 2 projects from 24 and 1 new project, so a total of 13 projects for $52 million. Wastewater, there's 32 projects for a total of $126 million. Of those, 25 are on schedule with a total just under $103 million. There are 7 that were in the delayed category for $23.5 million, and so we are 78 based on the numbers of projects and 81% based on the budget. So some examples of the larger projects that were delayed. There's Broadway wastewater treatment plant, third clarifier, and we're actually planning to get that out for bid next month. And there was a backup generator project that was funded with external grant funding, and there's been some delays due to the funding.
Councilman Pusley?
Thank you, Mayor. Jeff, I want to go back to page 6 for just a minute, if we could, please.
Page 6?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. I'm trying to let you get finished there. You know, so I want to talk about specifically the Bond 22 project list there. So I realize this represents a scorecard as we stand today, but if I were going to, I think, do a comparison of how we have progressed, that 30.3% that we're showing for Bond 22 was accomplished in what, a year, 2 years?
Right. Let's see, we awarded, the council approved all the design contracts in March of 25. Excuse me, 24, 23.
23.
Yeah, 23. So we're like 15, 16 months
Okay.
ahead of, you know.
So what I'd like to see is how that progress compares to what we did in years. So if you go back to 2014, our Bond 14.
Right.
How you know, on a month-to-month comparison or year-to-year comparison, what does that look like?
Okay, we'll get that for you. The 20, we'll do the 14 and the 18 compared to the last two, the 20 and 22.
I can tell you anecdotally, yeah, we are getting those things out much faster.
Well, I know we are, but I think that's an
percentage.
important report card to show that this city has made progress with respect to how we've done. And just like I said earlier, the city's been highly criticized in the past for not getting these projects done quickly enough.
Well, and I'll tell you what one of the factors that has helped us the most on that is recognition that on a large project, if you put design dollars and construction dollars on the same bond, it is going to delay how quickly that bar comes up. Because by the time you select your engineers, go through scoping, negotiation, get them working, and you've tied up all of those construction dollars as well, you're way down the road.
No, I agree with that 100%, and Councilman Hernandez has brought that up like 800 times. So, but
now, Councilman, you're just back to
you know, and that's important, and I think. And this will be for a future council to decide, and for y'all to decide on a future basis. In looking at this, and you showing us the scorecards of where we kind of are in each department, I think in the future what you should do is present that to the council on a monthly or at least quarterly basis. Okay, where are we at with respect to our bond projects and our capital improvement projects?
Right.
And specifically show project revenue. I don't, you know, when you show me a bubble that has 28 projects, well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
You know, what projects are we talking about? And I have been highly critical of the fact that I think our North Beach projects are taking way too long.
Yeah.
They're stuck in engineering or design or whatever, and it's like we're designing the Panama Canal, and we're not.
Right.
And
it started out that way, though.
You know, well, maybe, but we haven't received any updates from you guys, so I think on a go-forward basis, the future councils and the city managers, the council is going to give you a metric, say, we want 100% of these things done, or we want 80% of them.
Right.
And it's up to the city manager to decide how his departments are going to reach that goal.
Right.
And so it's like somebody said a minute ago, it's a management issue. That's absolutely correct.
Right.
But I don't want to be in the business of telling you how to do that.
Right. We appreciate that, Councilman.
That's not my job.
Right, but what
not
the
a
job of the
council
council is what you've done great at, which is awarding contracts and endorsing that mass selection project.
Yeah.
So for the past 2 bond programs, 5 months after the voters approve them, every contract has an engineering firm designing it.
Yeah.
That's because of the mass selection that this council has endorsed. In the prior years, that didn't happen, the prior bond programs. It could be 4 years and you're just awarding.
No, I think
design
those master
contracts.
service agreements
Yeah.
are brilliant.
Right.
Because we do that in the private sector.
Right.
You know, we
Yeah.
do master service agreements, so when we want to do whatever,
Yeah.
we've got a list of contractors or
Right.
engineers we go pick from, and you know, we're in the design phase
Yeah.
immediately. But
Right.
I think on a go-forward basis, this is a scorecard that you need to
Yeah.
at least on a regular basis report specific information to the council so that they understand what these projects are doing and
Yeah.
if we see a pattern of something being across projects being an issue,
Yeah.
then we know where we need to attack that issue.
Right, exactly. Good
Thank you.
point. Yes, sir, thank you.
Councilman Hunter.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Zanoni, what year did we establish that process?
The mass selection process was for the 2020 bond program, so 2021 is when we did it.
I'm pretty sure we did it 5 or 6 years ago when we started establishing that we needed y'all to start having the engineering and all the designing done even before we had voted on the bond packages.
No, I wasn't.
Well, that
Jeff will
was,
have to speak
Gil
to
would
that.
know.
Yeah.
I know, but when was that?
That was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
3 years ago.
The thing that really helped us was
Yeah.
it's a little bit of a misnomer. It's not so much the selection, it's the authorization of staff to execute these contracts up to a certain ceiling.
And ever since then, we've had pretty good results.
It has helped because we're not having to bring those contracts back individually to
Right.
council.
Yeah, the first time we did it was the Bond 20 program. There may have been some iteration of that in prior years, Councilman, you've been here.
It was
for
Joe
9 years.
McComb before Gil,
Right, and that was a little different.
much
which
as I'd
was-
like to give him
right.
credit.
No, what I was talking about was with the, I'm sorry. What I was talking about was particularly with the GO bonds about doing design
Yeah.
ahead of time. The first time we did, I think we did it on some projects prior to 2022, but it was still more, the policy came into place in 2022 for those ones going forward.
Well, I can explain some of that. It was actually kind of accidental. If you remember, we came in with a much larger program, and then it included the tax increases that were voted on in 2014. So we didn't want to, 2018. So we didn't want to raise those taxes, so we had to cut back the bond program. So we took several of those projects and cut back the construction dollars and just left the design dollars. And it actually turned out to be a great business process improvement.
Yeah, well, I codified it in our budget policy for 2022 to that going forward, that we try and do that so we have more accurate estimates on what the actual construction costs are, and then you can go right into construction within 6 months of the actual bond election, because you already have the design, and
That
move
is
forward.
another great benefit.
Right, so,
Peter's first year here.
Yeah.
Right, the Bill Witt Pool is a good example of that, where as soon as
Bill
that
Witt.
got approved by the voters.
Yorktown was done that way too.
Right.
Yeah.
Where,
Unfortunately, we had some permitting problems with that kind of delayed the construction.
which is.
But it was not much though, so that
Right.
one's under construction now.
Yeah.
So by doing that, you have more accurate, and then we can avoid using certificates of obligation.
Right, and this budget, by the way, Councilman Hernandez, I know you're big, you focus on that a lot. There are no new certificates of obligation being recommended. I'm not recommending them anymore unless we have an emergency, some type of or if it's a solid waste landfill, based on the council's input and the community's input. So from now on, we're going to be using just GO bonds, with the exception of some revenue bonds in this budget for things like street maintenance. But COs, we're not recommending the use of, just as an FYI. There's still some legacy ones that are in here.
Thank you. We've got,
Thank you.
Councilman
Yeah.
Suckley has a comment to make. Rebecca? Councilman Suckley? Yeah.
Thanks, Mayor. Great presentation, Jeff. Very well, very succinct information, very well summarized. I appreciate that. To the couple of points that have already been made, Councilman Roy's comments about Peter setting that 80% goal in the future, I think is great. This is great progress that we've seen in this scorecard. And to Councilman Pusley's comment about using this on an ongoing basis, I think that's great. And we can use this year as kind of a baseline of this scorecard being the first one. And we can show trends and things going forward as to hopefully how we continue to improve on this. And, everybody wants instant gratification. And in this day and age, there's so many pieces to it. I've certainly had my frustrations on certain projects, but to get to where we've come, Peter, with you and your team and Jeff's leadership, to get it up to 76% is a great achievement. I appreciate the hard work. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman. Okay, Jeff, go ahead.
Okay, I'm getting towards the end. I had just a couple more slides. So we had a summary slide on wastewater. We have 19 ongoing projects. We're pulling in 2 long-range projects into the near term. There are 2 new projects, and then we're adding 6 projects that were delayed from 24 to 25, total 29 projects for just under $183 million. On water, there are 50 projects for a total of $222 million in FY24. 40 of those 50 are on schedule, with 192 of the 222 encumbered. We have 10 projects that were delayed that total about $30 million. So 80% based on numbers of projects and 86% on schedule based on encumbrances. So 39 ongoing projects, pulling in 2 long-range projects into the near term, plus there's 4 new projects, and 8 projects that move from 24 to 25. So we have 53 projects in FY25 for a total of $517 million. Now, last slide was just to remind you about Bond 24. Of course, there's 38 projects on that, $175 million, and assuming this passes, we'll be coming with an item to amend the CIP and add these projects into the CIP.
Right now, they're listed in the year 4, right? They're in the budget book. They're listed in the budget book, but they're in year 4, which is the first year of the 6-year long-range plan. So if it passes by the voters, if any one or if all propositions pass, we'll bring those forward into the 1-year budget, the 2025 budget.
That concludes my presentation.
Councilman Hernandez.
Okay, and Peter, this is more a question for you and probably our finance department. One of the biggest concerns here is the amount of debt spending that this incurs. I mean, currently right now, we have $1.682 billion in debt, of which $562 million is taxpayer funded and $1.12 billion is revenue or ratepayer funded, right, or secured. This is adding a significant amount of debt, and we have plans for the next 3 years to add debt to our to the citizens of Corpus Christi, right? Now, I'll be specific on an example here with the water department, and I've talked to Drew about this specifically. The water department for next year has $169 million in revenues projected for next year based on what the rates we're going to set for them. They currently have $513 million in debt, which accounts for 33% of their operating budget, or $57 million.
Right.
The projected debt scheduled for this the capital improvement plan for the water department is $517 million, of which $468 million is debt spending. 220 through the SWIFT loan, and the remainder from just regular revenue bonds, for a total of $981 million. I know some of it's going to be covered by the drought exemption surcharge, but you also have projected projects for the next 3 years that'll equate to 1.3 billion in just the water department.
Right.
Okay, if you're already spending a third of your budget in the water department on, on debt service,
Right.
and you more than double it 2.5 times, the drought surcharge is not enough to cover that entire amount. So you're projecting that we're going to have to more than double the rates in the next 3 years in order to maintain the existing operating budget. You're going to have, but as we all know, operating budgets never stay static. You have more costs in chemicals and labor and just the regular operations of a department. So I understand that we're looking at this from this year, but when you borrow money, you don't start paying it back for 2 years.
Right.
Right?
Yes, sir.
We're going to borrow it next year. We don't start paying for it in the following year. The decisions we make on this kind of debt, and it's not just water department, it's all the departments.
Right.
We're debt spending, and the larger your CIP program is, it's majority debt spending. So help me understand and how we make sure that we're not maxing out the credit card here and having force councils in the future to make those hard decisions about raising rates and probably not taxes, but definitely rates.
Good. Well, let's stick with and Drew's going to help on this, Drew. But so on the water, wastewater, if we just look at the utilities, because the GO bonds and the property tax rate is a little different. But one thing we did this year, based on similar conversation last year with you and the council, is we looked at a 3-year rate model and then I think almost a 10-year rate model. And so the rates aren't doubling, just so we're clear on that, but they will go up. And we've showed that to council when we've done desal. And this summer, when we went over the capital program that we're presenting today, it's not just Drew says, I want to do this, and we put it in the budget. It's a review with the team, including our finance director, Heather, assistant city manager over budget and finance, myself, Drew, the fiscal people in CCW. So we looked at the model. Drew probably has it with him here this morning to see what is the impact on that rate. And so we can review that with you now. So we didn't do that the last couple of years. This year we did do that in the summertime. And Drew will give you the detail on what rate impact does this have. What you're saying is absolutely correct. It does have a rate implication. And so it's good to talk about this.
Well, and then we're not even including the GO projects that we're doing.
Right, that's why, that's a different
There's not
thing.
even in there.
Right, well, that's different.
It's not in the CIP.
The GO projects?
Well, the $175 million, they're not in the CIP
that's
because they
correct.
haven't been approved.
I know.
There are projects associated with that.
Yeah,
right?
so on that, I'll speak real quick on that side, then I want to go back to water waste. So on the GO side, all those projects and all this plan are done within the current tax rate. There's no property tax rate increase in the future. Unlike the water rate and the wastewater rate, there will be an increase to pay for this infrastructure. On the GO side, with things like new roads, new swimming aquatic centers, new police facilities, all that's done with the current tax rate from now into 30 years in the future. No change in the tax rate, so that's important. On the utility side, though, there's no doubt about it, there will be a rate increase. That 30% margin, Drew, who spent 20 years in Houston, who has good information from that city still, their percentage is 50%.
Right.
So 50% of their money every year goes to pay for investing in infrastructure. I did want to just put it into other context, too, which is that in the past 5 years, except for Winter Storm Uri that impacted the entire state of Texas, this city has had no water issues. We've had no boils. We've had no bans. More than 5 years ago, this city couldn't even use the water. There was a ban, not even a boil. And that didn't come in the last 5 years by luck. It came by investing in infrastructure, making sure we can deliver water, making sure our wastewater is not spilling into the federal waters and we're being sued. So it does take money to reinvest into your system, especially when it has been neglected for decades. There's no doubt about it. But we're doing it smartly. We're doing it in a smart way by looking at all avenues. And Drew, let's have Drew go over the rates over these next couple of years from this plan.
Right.
Yeah.
And here, before I'd like to ask some questions that maybe you'll address when the questions I have that pertain to the same thing. So, I mean, I know, particularly in this, I've been talking to our financial advisor, and I think we just need to be clear that we're not putting on a credit card. There's a difference between credit card debt and debt that's tied to a long-term asset.
Right.
So we just need to be very clear when we're clarifying that, because it's not structured the same way. It's easy, and for lack of a better word, I mean, we've already faced it on the campaign trail. We've got all the others that are not incumbents are saying, you know, they're putting the money on your credit card and the debt is out of control. Well, I say, well, it depends. If it's tied to a long-term asset and we have equity in the asset, and we're continuing to improve the asset to make sure that if you're a banker, that there's a good utilization of that investment.
Yeah.
So I think we need to be able to clarify that rather than, so that way the public knows that we're not looking at it, because it's easy to say it in a little, you know, tweet speech that we've got billions of debt or whatever the case is. So I just want to make sure that that's clarified, that we clarify that this is for a long-term asset, whether it's for a long-term asset. The other thing is when I had this conversation with him, and you know, he said that we have additional debt capacity, and the comparison that he made was because the debt per capita in comparison to, I think, other 20 communities in Texas. Right. I think we're in the bottom third portion of that. Yeah, like Dallas has about, with regard to per capita, we're at about 40% of the debt that Dallas has. And I think it's 65 in San Antonio, and you know, what is it, and like 50 in comparison to Austin. So you know, I guess that's one of the things, is that how do the bond rating companies calculate that, so that way we can have peace of mind, and Councilman Hernandez can have peace of mind.
Yeah, good point.
And I think that's one thing that we have, you know, with regard to, it's important that, you know, one of the things that Victor, and then I talked to another guy, what's his name, Mark Nicholas? And because and you know, and he was saying the same thing. He says there has to be a commitment from the organization to be able to want to invest.
Right.
And so part of that rating comes from the fact that those ratings come from the fact that we're continuing to improve that infrastructure.
Right.
So we just need to be cognizant of that, so that way the public knows that this is our commitment. Just like you said, that we don't have water boils, that we're planning for the future. Let me put that here. It improves.
And that debt, while you're looking, Councilman, is a good point, which is just recently, a few months ago, our credit rating was reaffirmed by rating agencies, and they look at all of the above. It's just not one thing. It's the council's quality, the council quality of the city manager's team, the level of debt, the plan to pay it back.
Yeah.
So if we, a credit card analogy, we know, you know, there's no plan. You just charge and charge it. This has a comprehensive plan reviewed constantly by our financial advisors, and the rating agencies are looking at us all the time. They're probably watching this meeting today, Fitch and Moody's, and so they give us an opinion on how strong is this city financially. In the past 5 years, our credit rating has increased 3 times, and it was just upheld. So, good point. This is smart financial planning, and as compared to, you know.
Yeah, and the other thing is that there's debt versus liability versus depreciation.
Right.
You know, you could have an asset that's completely depreciated, and what is it? What is it? And so it's not at the value that it should be, because once again, it's a long-term asset to guarantee that we're providing, you know, what is it? You know, gas or utilities to the consumer, or to the residents or the taxpayer.
Right.
And so that's something that I think that we need to be clarified, because once again, when you say debt, it just scares people, you know, and you know, it's just a thing. We just need to, it's an instinct. I did the same thing. I criticized everybody that was on here back in 2018, you know, and what is it? And so I just want us to be clear that way, because I've just seen it. The other thing, hold on. Do I have my 10 minutes on? I just want to make sure, be cognizant of my time. Is that, you know, Michael, that was a good idea when you came up with it. Well, it keeps me conscientious about how much time I have. Well, I have 7 seconds.
I think Robert's Rules of Order says 5 minutes twice.
All right. Okay, and then in addition, the separation of debt with regard to, for enterprise funds or liabilities with regard to enterprise funds. I also understand that there's a different structure when calculating that. And simply because, debt that we may have where it be, the term we've been using, a revenue producing asset.
Yeah.
The debt that we have for a police academy, that's something that obviously is borne directly by the taxpayer.
Right.
But the debt that we have in comparison, so I just want to ensure that we're not generalizing everything.
Right, there are different types of debt. That's the point.
Exactly. So there's a different structure, so there may be a different policy, like I said, from these financial advisors have told me that we need to be able to look at.
Right, like
So-
take the airport, that's a revenue producing asset, so all the airline, the ticket sales, the fees from the airline, that helps to pay for debt that they might have.
Exactly.
Different category altogether than the water fund.
And then the water fund, as we found out, and that's the thing I was gonna say,
Is it my 10 minutes go? So, the other thing is that we're very unique in the sense that it's true that the debt that we carry or anything that we have with regard to water, even though it be through our water ratepayers, we have a unique system. It's not just borne by the taxpayers of Corpus Christi. It's borne by the regional water that we provide.
Absolutely.
And that includes South Texas Water Authority, that includes San Patricio Water Authority.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be very difficult, or I don't know that it'd be difficult, but it'd be hard to find something where you have a specific policy that lays into that.
Right.
So we just want to be clear that we can all explain that, so that way we understand that as a regional water provider, then how is that calculated based, once again, going back to per capita, whereas the same thing, I think one of the things that we learned and just an example, in California, was using the public-private partnership at 75 to 100 basis points, and then it had the take-or-pay contract, which was an additional liability versus debt, that once again, that's still a liability that we have, but then you have to look at the other dynamic that would have you, we're stuck in a position where it alters the other position, that now we're using very expensive water first because of a take-or-pay contract. So I'm just trying to say that when we get all that, and I think he brings up good points, because it's really made me do a lot more research, and it's made me be a better councilman, so thank you. What is it? So that way I can, because obviously we have to go explain it. In fact, I did it yesterday. And so just understanding what the different dynamics, debt versus liability versus depreciation, debt with regard to long-term assets. So it is going to affect the rate. It is, but we need the water. I mean, that's the whole bottom line. Regardless of what it is, we need the water. We're at 24.7 this morning capacity.
Yeah, the past couple of days we're below 25%, 24.7. With a long-term forecast, pretty bleak, because is it La Nina that's coming back, or El Nino? That's a drier fall and winter for us, so we're going to start regrouping on this.
And that's the whole thing, that's the thing that we found in California and Tampa, that when you get to the point when you're out, it's just like a shortage of gas. Then all of a sudden everything increases.
Yeah.
So being able to plan for that, so I think is more financially prudent.
Right.
All right. Well, I'm sure I used more than 10 minutes because you didn't start timing me till end. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Hernandez.
Drew, go ahead and answer the original question.
Right, so Drew Nolly, Chief Operating Officer, good morning. I appreciate.
I think can you
Mike?
turn your microphone on, please?
Rebecca.
Testing.
There we go.
Can you hear me now? Okay, thank you. So I really do appreciate the question. I think that these are questions that need to be asked. I think part of what has been extraordinary in terms of what we've done in the last few months is something that we've been talking about, which is putting together a scorecard to help us maintain assets and help make sure that we're delivering these projects when we say we're going to deliver them. What I would say is that as it relates to the debt, and as it relates, there's no doubt, as the city manager just said, there is going to be an upward pressure on rates, certainly as we move closer to 2028, 2029. We have that financial model, we look at it, and so I would tell you that there is going to be an increase in rates. We know that even without the large water supply, the seawater desalination project, just by the fact that we have a CIP program that has costs that are required to maintain and improve the assets that we have, there is going to be that increased pressure on rates. And then, of course, when you add the cost of a large capital project, that's also going to add upward pressure on the rates. Now, one of the things I think is important to note is we're doing everything we can to make sure that we do the best we can to minimize that rate impact to the customer. So, for example, we have the SWIFT loans that we have been successful in attaining. That's going to save the ratepayer approximately $130 million over the life of the loan. We have a dedicated drainage exemption fund that some ratepayers pay into. That's going to generate revenue as well. Is it going to generate enough to necessarily offset the cost? I think you hit the nail on the head. No, it's not. But, you know, there's also potential for grant funding. That's something else that we're going to be seeking. Next month, we're going to be applying for, excuse me, a Bureau of Reclamation grant. We'll find out how successful we are next year. We've been told by several folks at various agencies that they think we have a very good chance for being successful in some of that grant funding. So every dollar that we get from a grant funding opportunity is one less dollar that our ratepayers have to incur.
Okay, Drew, I understand, and you know, the soliloquy that my
And I'm
compatriot, I didn't say anything negative. You know, I don't want to obfuscate the issue by sitting here and pontificating, right?
There's two SAT words in one sentence.
I did go to college. But ultimately, it's going to be down to the ratepayer. You know, you and I and probably most people on this council and in this chamber can afford doubling of the water rates. And when I say doubling, it's probably like $30, $35 additional on top of it, right? So if you're a typical household, your water portion of that utility bill is about $35, right? If you're a typical 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, you know, 1,800 square foot house, you're probably doing between 5,000 and 6,000 gallons a month, right?
Correct.
So you just do the math, it's about $35. So if you double that, that's $70, right? But that's just the water. It's not the wastewater, it's not solid waste, it's not gas, it's not, you know, everything else that's on there, that's not the stormwater. So all of them have upward pressure. So you can't just look at this in isolation, and that's why I'm saying we got to be, you know, like I said, we can afford it, but not everybody can. There are people that you know, are on the fringes that can't afford these kind of increases. And it's going to come. And that's why I caution us in making sure that we understand what that effect is when we make those decisions. It's not just some, you know, well, it's going to rise, but we don't really know what it is in 2 years, right? We need to be meticulous in understanding what that is, so we make good decisions and don't put future councils in a bad position. And I appreciate you getting me with a rate modeler tomorrow, so we can kind of talk about what that looks like. Sure. And you know, maybe we look at wastewater as well, and not just water. And I caution us. You know, and I use the term credit card because people understand it. It's probably more like a mortgage payment or a business loan where you have assets associated with it. It's probably a better analogy. But it's, you know, we are borrowing money and we have to pay it back. And if you're paying in debt service, that's less for operations, so that you know, there's a balance. You know, the financial advisor looks at a ratio, right? As long as you maintain that ratio, they're happy. Well, the ratio is, if you have more debt, you can charge more for it. You have the capacity to do that, even in taxing aspects. They look at our, I believe it's the approved ratepayer-funded tax amount. I forget the actual terminology that we can increase to cover the debt. There's that ability. There's always that ability. It's just, you know, we've got to pass that on to our citizens, and that's what I'm trying to get across here. Let's be fully informed when we're making these decisions, and not just say, hey, it's, you know, we're doing this great work on the capital improvement plan. That's great. Are the needs there? Absolutely. Okay, it's just, can we pace ourselves to make sure that we don't overburden our citizens? That's all I want to get across. Thank you.
Great points, Councilman. Councilman Campos.
Thank you, Mayor. It's funny when we mention in our comments about how we do some comparisons sometimes, like California, Carlsbad, it's a public-private ownership that made that possible. Can you tell us if it's a private-public partnership here with our water department? No, it's not, is it? It's all public. So everything that we do, everything that we going to mortgage, going to try to find, to figure out how we're going to pay for the water that we do need, it's all going to be on the ratepayer.
It's not to interrupt, but it's the same thing in the public-private model. The ratepayer still pays. The private sector doesn't give free money. So it's just a different delivery method, which they even told us in California is more expensive. When the private sector does it with the city, they're paying a 30%, 20 to 30% markup. So
right, and I think Councilman Barrera kind of hit the nail on the head, because there is a premium that you're going to pay. And in some instances, you lose a bit of the control, and sometimes you may even lose a little bit of the transparency. You know, I don't have anything against a private-public partnership way of implementing a project, but, you know, I will say that, you know, with every delivery method, there's pros and there's cons. And I think, you know, one of the advantages to the delivery method that we're using right now for the project that we have is that it's designed to be an open, transparent process. It's one where we will have input into the design process, and we'll be able to have input into the process all along. And, you know, knowing that our community is very interested and very engaged in the things that we do, you know, I think that model is probably one of the best models to implement.
I agree. I agree that, I mean, the only other thing that I could add would be, you know, like I've been saying, is it would have been, the best thing would have been for the ratepayers to have had this, to have a say, to have a vote on this, but okay, we're here. I guess I guess that's all for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Campos. Go ahead. Yeah, no more questions.
Okay. Great, so we're going to move into our next presentation. Unless there's any other questions on the capital budget. When Heather Holbert, our Assistant City Manager, will give an overview. Let me see, is Brett Otting here yet? Brett's not quite here yet. They have the Visit Corpus Christi has a board meeting, so next will be Heather giving an overview. It's several slides showing our hotel occupancy tax. So this is an important part of our budget. It provides dollars for our American Bank Center and for the visitor industry, and Heather will go over that.
Good morning, Mayor, Council. Heather Holbert, Assistant City Manager. So just a review of our hotel occupancy tax. So the state comptroller allows for the charging of or assessing of local hotel occupancy tax along with a state hotel occupancy tax. And so both of these are collected on rooms that are rented for less than 30 days. So anything over 30 days is considered a longer term. It's not considered a short term or eligible for hotel occupancy tax. And then there's very minimal amounts. It'd be for the local hot, it's any room that is costing more than $2 a day, which I think would be the majority of ours. And for the state, it would be any room costing more than $15 a day. In Corpus Christi, we have a total overall rate of 15%. The state maximum is 17%, so we do actually have 2 additional cents that could be approved by City Council for a specific project. But the municipal tax rate is a 7%. The state charges 6%, which 2 of that goes back to us for what we call SHOT, or state hotel occupancy taxes, that is utilized for beach maintenance. We have the convention center rate is 2%, so the local total is a 9% hot, and then we have the state, which is a 6% hot. In addition to that, there is also the Corpus Christi Tourism Public Improvement District, and that collects a fee on hotels with 40 rooms or more of a rate of 2% of the taxable room sold at these hotels. That revenue is collected and then utilized to increase our marketing efforts that is managed through the TPID board and managed by Visit Corpus Christi. And so that is to expand our marketing that is already being done through Visit Corpus Christi. So this is just a visual representation of what I just talked about. The hotel occupancy tax is a total of 15%. 2% of that goes to the convention center specifically. 7% is for general hotel occupancy collections. 6% is to the state. Of the 7% that is collected for general hotel occupancy, 44% of that does go to Visit Corpus Christi for the marketing efforts and representation that they do of the city for tourism. And then the state portion, 2% that comes back to the city of Corpus Christi for us to maintain beaches. So looking at the total budget of the hotel occupancy tax, what we are proposing for fiscal year 25 is total revenues of $19.9 million with total expenditures of $24.5 million. And this is a visual representation of how those are broken up. And then looking at our hot revenue history, the city of Corpus Christi did fare very well going through COVID, and we have continued to see increases in our hotel occupancy tax. We are seeing cooling a little bit in the market, and Brett will talk about that a little bit more. So what is being proposed for fiscal year 25 is $15.3 million. We are estimating that our collections for fiscal year 24 will be $15.1 million, which is less than what was adopted in the budget for fiscal year 24. We have seen a slowing. We also had some unusual trends in 23 when we were setting the 24 budget, which were not repeated in 24. So we have adjusted that budget down. We are keeping it about flat with what we collected in 24. So then looking at the expenditures that are being budgeted for within the hotel occupancy tax fund, these is a detail of it. We do fund several local attractions within the area to help supplement their marketing. And so we do provide funding to the Texas State Aquarium, the Museum of Science and History, the Art Museum of South Texas, and the Botanical Gardens. Those all do receive funding through our hotel occupancy tax. The Convention Center does receive $1.8 million for maintenance and operations, and we'll go into that into a little bit more detail. There is $600,000 that is budgeted for our group incentive program that is managed by Visit Corpus Christi, and then that is for attraction of specifically conventions, sports events, along with we're looking to expand the wording in that a little bit to also include other type of film events and things like that. We have $100,000 for programming on the seawall. We do focus programming during the summer along the seawall area to help provide attractions for people to visit when they are on the seawall. There's $300,000 that is going directly to PBR for inclusion in their nationwide marketing. This enables the city of Corpus Christi to be highlighted in their marketing across the United States in conjunction with them coming to Corpus Christi during the Buck Days. Visit Corpus Christi does receive 44% of the 7% that is collected, and so for fiscal year 25 that is budgeted at $6.7 million. There is $300,000 that is provided for arts and grants project that is done through the Arts Commission that is managed through Parks and Recreation, and those are for a lot of times for smaller grants for events that do attract people into the city. We have we have maintenance in there, including the Bayfront Arts and Science Park maintenance, along with multicultural area maintenance. That is primarily for Parks and Recreation to maintain those areas that include heritage parks and around the museums. We are still continuing with the wayfinding project, so we do have $300,000. That is going to be primarily, I think we've got the majority of the way through the design. We're working with TxDOT on that, and so the $300,000 that is in the budget is primarily for the fabrication of the final sides and installation, which we'll be doing in 25. We have $400,000 for a Whataburger field maintenance and insurance. That is a city-owned facility, which is managed and operated by the Hooks. And so we do provide for the insurance on that facility, along with a maintenance allowance that we allocate to them of $175,000 a year. 1.5 million is coming from SHOT. They're the state hotel occupancy taxes for, that actually is coming from our hotel funds. That is, then we get additional money for from SHOT, but 1.5 million of our hotel occupancy tax does go for beach maintenance in addition to the money that we receive through SHOT. That is down. What we're looking at doing is reducing that amount by about $500,000 a year, and then fully utilizing all of our SHOT funding. This does not result in any type of reduction in maintenance. It's just that as that SHOT money grows, our dependence on this to make our funding complete is continuing to decrease. And so this will allow this money to be used for other things within hotel occupancy.
Can I interject?
Sure.
Peter, could we get, you said the arts and grants projects, can we just get, maybe you can email it to us as a follow-up, what that has gone to the last couple years?
Sure, we can do that.
Yeah, the ones awarded by the commission?
Yes.
Yes, we'll get you that.
Thank you.
There is a small transfer to the...
Heather, I'm so sorry. We've got a couple of comments. Sure. Councilman Hernandez.
On your budgeting for the Whataburger field insurance, right? Over the last 2 years, in 2022-23, we paid $534,000. Original budget was $377,000. In 23-24, the amount was $551,000. But for 2025, you're only budgeting $374,000. It seems like we have a trend of $500,000 expenses and you're budgeting $374,000.
So what that was actually is the $175,000 that is the maintenance allowance. During COVID, the Hooks kind of got off on their spending of that funding, and so we caught them up in 24, which is why there's $575,000. I think was what you said, and then.
It says baseball stadium including insurance, so you're combining insurance and maintenance.
Exactly. So they were, like I said, they were a year behind, so we would roll funding over from the prior year, and so we caught them up in 24. So they now are spending the money within the current fiscal year. So that's why there is a difference between what was the actuals for 24 and what the budget for 25 is.
So what is the insurance on it?
I'm not sure. I don't have that number set broken out. It would be the amount minus about the $175,000.
Okay, and remind me what our lease rate is for them on an annual basis?
I'm not sure, to tell you the truth. It is minimal because they take care of all of the maintenance, they maintain the facility, they invest a lot of money back into the facility. So I know that the lease amount is minimal because they do take care of almost 100% of it. We only give them a small allowance of $175,000.
They also get all the revenue from the naming rights too, so, all right, I'm not going to get into it. Thank you.
Councilman Pesley. Councilman? Pesley?
Oh, I'm sorry. Heather, when we say beach and shoreline operations, what area does that include?
So that includes all of our mileage that the city is responsible for. So that goes all the way from south of Port Aransas. We maintain a portion up there.
Right.
We maintain the main part there around the Packery Channel, and then south, and then the county picks up. We've kind of got we have a couple of exchanges there, but that's that whole area there. We are also able to utilize it on North Beach, I believe.
Yeah.
I think it is McGee Beach is the one that we have. I don't think we utilize it as much there, but for the other beaches we do.
Yeah. I'd like to see a little bit of a more detailed breakdown on that.
Okay, we have that. We can get that for you. It's in a separate account, so we can get that detail.
Yeah, and we can do that. And that also includes, it's not just the maintenance. It does include the maintenance, but it also includes a lot of the staffing. That's one of the things that we did this year is really, streamlined. We had kind of had lifeguards over here and different funding sources. So we tried to consolidate a lot of that funding and expenses into that SHOT funding.
Right.
And so that includes maintenance, it includes staffing, other equipment, things like that.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Sure.
Go ahead, Heather.
Okay. So wait for the presentation to come back up. Okay. And then we have $9.2 million, which is being transferred over for CIP for projects at the American Bank Center, which we'll go over in more detail in a separate slide.
I was just going to say, Councilman Pusley, we're going to get you that breakout, but just in the budget book on page 166 is a pretty decent breakout. Yeah, it includes things like the 1.6 million is for Gulf Beach, McGee Beach, North Beach is there. We have Gulf Beach Park Enforcement, Bay Beach Park Enforcement. The lifeguards are 1.8 million, and so on. So that's a good start, and then we'll get you more detail. Page 166.
I'll look it up. Don't worry about it.
Okay, great. Yes, sir.
So then looking at some of the capital maintenance that is being done at the American Bank Center that is planned for this fiscal year includes some kitchen equipment replacement, some walk-ins, and these are more capital equipment type things versus capital improvements. So it's not necessarily building improvements, but this is replacement of capital equipment that has to be replaced on a regular basis. So we have $1.4 million, which is allocated for these capital improvements, including the equipment and then some building maintenance and improvements also.
And Heather and council members, so on this slide and the next slide, what you're going to see is $10 million in continued investment. This is new investment in the American Bank Center using the fund balances we've had in these funds. So it pretty much drains the fund balances, but we're putting it into production. We know that by now that's $100 million when you have construction inflation and just basic work at the convention center. But this budget does continue investing in critical infrastructure pieces like the chillers and ADA accessibility and electrical components. So $10 million in total when you look at this maintenance slide and then the next one.
Exactly. And then we have $9.2 million planned for major improvements to the building. And so this includes electrical improvements, fire pump upgrades, flood mitigation, and it's into our loading dock area. So under the American Bank Center, we have the loading dock area, which has experienced a lot of flooding. That is where our ADA accessible entrance is down there. And so we really need to help mitigate that flooding in that area. And then improvements to the HVAC on the convention center side. So this is a total of a little over $5 million that'll be invested in the system, the chiller, and then also the management system for the convention center side, and then $1.3 million in lighting control systems. So a total of 9.2, which will be for fiscal year 25. Some of these projects do have additional funding needs within the next fiscal year, so we are looking at, we'll be coming back with recommendations for an additional $4.8 million in fiscal year 26 to complete the electric project along with the chiller replacement project. So that does conclude my presentation on the hotel occupancy tax.
Thank you, Heather.
Mayor, just to point out on the American Bank Center, and we'll bring an update to City Council, but there's two chiller systems. There's the one in the arena side and then the one in the convention center side. This council already approved the arena side. Those chillers were ordered almost a year ago, I think, at this point.
Exactly. So we've actually gotten a lot of that equipment in.
Right.
We've got a lot of the design done. We're still waiting on the dehumidification components, but we are looking at that project will continue to move forward.
Yeah, so that project's moving forward for the arena side. There were two big chillers. One's broken, so it's running on one. Janak is the engineer of record, and so equipment was pre-ordered, it's coming in. We'll keep Janak to design it, because it's not just you unplug it and put a new system in, you have to reconfigure. And then this budget includes new chillers for the convention center side. That building has 3 chillers, 1.5 work, right? So this begins to order new chillers for the convention center portion, the middle part of the building. It also has a plan to decouple the art center, the art and the science museum, and the Harbor Playhouse from the consolidated system. That plan's in this budget. So that system's moving forward. The proposition, the sales tax propositions will continue to add monies, critical monies for things like the roof, interior improvements, and so on. So we'll bring that back to council. This includes a lot of information, but we're still very focused on the American Bank Center.
Good.
If you drive by there today, outside is the several $1 million project council approved for enhancements to the outside, better landscaping, better lighting, better accessibility into the building. That's underway right now, so it's coming along nice. I did also want to recognize here in the audience today, we have Johnny Filippello from the Buck Days. We appreciate their partnership in utilizing the American Bank Center. And then also Daniel Mace's here from OVG 360, the managing partner. So,
Where's Daniel? Oh, there you are. Okay. Thank you. Councilman Pesley.
Yeah. Peter, when you say that you're going to decouple the Art Center and the Science Museum, so we're going to put their own systems in?
Yes, sir. They'll be on a standalone system. The system that they're on today was something that a lot of folks did in the 90s, I think, where there was a central chiller. And in today's day and age, it's not the best setup. Plus, as we put new systems in, we have to make that decision. Do we keep it a loop system, or do we do the standalone systems? The cost-benefit factor says standalone systems are better financially, so that's what we're talking about.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
What about the Harbor Playhouse?
The Harbor Playhouse, that's on the loop too, and right?
Exactly. And we are looking for, I think we have a funding approved for that also. I think that is through Type B. The Type B board did approve the funding for that. So between what we have within hotel occupancy tax and what has been provided through Type A and Type B, we should be able to move forward with decoupling all of those different assets and being able to then install the new chiller on the convention center side that will only be for the convention center and the arena, the Selena Auditorium. We'll be able to decouple all of that.
Yeah, we have $1.2 million in the capital budget for the Harbor Playhouse, beginning with design in this year, FY25, and then $715,000 in the next year for the Harbor Playhouse HVAC systems. Yeah. So all three,
Well, I just want to say, one of the things that I had been, since I came to this council, a big champion for is bringing the ABC Center complex and all those facilities up to the standard that we ought to be. They've been terribly neglected in the past, and I'm glad to see we're moving forward on that. And Councilman Barrera a while ago talked about,
revenue producing
assets, and that's one of them.
Absolutely. We know it has a huge impact on the downtown businesses and hotels.
Absolutely.
It's proven anytime there's a major event there, their businesses thrive downtown.
And with respect to hotel motel tax, I want to go specifically the sales tax portion. How much of the sales tax is it? Like 25% is paid by people who don't live here. Is that an accurate figure?
Yes, it is between 25 and 30% based off of Visit Corpus Christi's analysis of our sales tax is being generated by visitors, non-citizens of Corpus Christi.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick 7-minute break. We'll be right back.
Okay, and
and we'll start with Power of Tourism.
Right, and Brett Otting's here, so
yes, Brett Otting is here.
He made it for,
So we'll recess just for a few minutes. Go ahead and convene our meeting and start with the power of tourism. Visit Corpus Christi.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Morning.
Apologies for being late. Our Visit Corpus Christi board meeting is going on right now, but happy to be here now. And Councilman Hunter said I have 45 minutes. You just said that. You just said that. No, I'm kidding.
4.5 minutes.
4.5 minutes. We'll make it quick, but I just want to I want to give a kind of a quick recap of what the last year has looked like and what we're going to be focusing on next year. You've seen this before, but I want to make sure to point out that we received no public funds that were hotel occupancy tax, and we also have the TPID now. So all of our money comes from overnight stays, generating overnight stays and hotel rooms and short-term rentals. You all have received this document. This is a 2-page document, but I wanted to show it again to show just the power of travel and the impact that travel makes. And specifically, a couple of things I wanted to show is on the right side. Oftentimes people think that travel and tourism is only really impacting the hotels and maybe the rentals, but as you see in that graph on the right side, the amount of money last year that was brought into restaurants, into bars, into retail, into stores like H-E-B. Visitors spend money all over the community. To really quick go back to Heather, a question about how much sales tax is generated, what the percentage is. It is about 27%. But one clarification is that is not coming from us. That is coming from the state's economic impact report that they do on state tourism, and they break it down by the larger metros and the cities. Corpus Christi finished the year last year again, #1 in the state of all the coastal communities by a long shot when it comes to overnight stays. So again, we're continuing to try to make sure that people understand that when we compare ourselves or when others compare Corpus Christi to Galveston, South Padre, Port Aransas, there's no other community anywhere close to bringing the amount of people to come to their community and stay overnight than what we are doing in Corpus. What does the year look like? Well, I'll tell you right now, the summer was not good. Summer was down slightly. We knew it was going to be down. You can look up at those two, at the point, -0.8. You can see how we were looking, but then we had the tropical storm Alberto and the hurricane that really wiped out 2 busy weekends, or 2 potentially busy weekends, and it was very hard to rebound. So at the board meeting, we were just doing a presentation, and if you take out those 2 weekends with the tropical storm and the hurricane, we finished down 1% versus last year for a community from tourism. And that's pretty consistent across the board. We talked to a lot of the attractions to see how they were, and they're pretty much flat versus last year as well. And a lot of that is because of those 2 weekends where we lost a lot of tourism. Convention sales, I have a bunch of slides that look similar to this. I just kind of want to point out a couple items. This is all about what the economic impact of what we do is to the community. And so this is a slide that we showed at a board meeting to the hoteliers 2 months ago. But I wanted to show it because this is only for 3 months. This is the last 3, this is March to the end of June, what these numbers on these next 4 slides are. And you see how substantial they are. In that 4-month span, we booked 6,400 room nights in conventions for future years at $2.2 million in economic impact. Again, that's just in 4 months we did that. This was an update to the hoteliers. We also had Skills USA come to town. And if you want to look at what Skills USA does, again, what does one organization look like? Well, one organization brings in 8,700 room nights and over $1 million of spending, or $5 million in economic impact, $1 million in spending in restaurants. And so if anybody's interested in seeing what the true economic impact of Skills USA is and how it breaks down by grocery stores, restaurants, retail, attractions, I'd be happy to show you that. But these kids come in, we've heard before people in the community say that kids don't spend money. Well, they have to eat somewhere. similar. And those kids in 3 days spent over $1 million in restaurants in Corpus Christi. And so this is a big event. They're in town right now. We're trying to get them to finalize the contract for the next 4 years. And we feel by the end of the weekend, we're going to have that all done. And we're going to have a contract extension for the next 4 years for that event to continue coming here. Sports is something that's new, and it's really taken off for us. Again, in the months of March, April, May, and June, we booked over $7 million in economic impact in sports for future years. And again, that's not just for this year. That might be for groups and events for the next 2 or 3 years out. Even when you comes to conventions, we just booked a convention for 2031. I can't remember the name of it right now, but I remember that there's one for the year 2031. That's how far out some of these are being booked. And then film and music. We are 1 year in with film and music. We've hired a film and music commissioner, Lydia Garza. Some of you might know Lydia. She's a Corpus Christi native. She owns a talent agency. She is an actress as well, and she's doing some really great things. But you can see the impact that we're making right now. And a couple that I want to point out is the second list. In October, we're going to have a movie coming here to film, and it's been quite some time since we had a movie here. They were actually at the Mayor's Big Bang as well, doing some early on footage because it is a movie about pyrotechnics that takes place in Corpus Christi. So they came and did some filming during the 4th of July weekend around town, and then they'll be doing the rest of the film during the months of late September, the month of October, and up until about Thanksgiving. So again, that's going to be something really big for the community. We also had a commercial that was shot here, so film and music is taking off as well, which leads me to my next point. Many of you just had a discussion about the hotel occupancy tax budget. A couple years ago, I worked with Peter to create the group incentive program. It's $575,000 a year. That was created for conventions. And then we created the Sports Commission, who's taken off, as you saw. Now we've created the Film Commission, and what we've seen happen is that we're needing to incentivize movies, we're needing to incentivize sporting tournaments as well as conventions, and all of those in the last year. So this is the 2023-24 recap. So our fiscal year, October last year to what will be at the end of September, we will have incentivized $446,000 where we're giving groups for that economic impact at a 35 to 1. So that 35 to 1, what that means is for every $1 we give a group, they spend $35.86 in the community. Those are verified numbers. And the reason why it's not all the way up to $575 is because we also have them coming to town a lot. The mayor's actually going to be at an event over the weekend with a group as well. But we have a lot of people that we come to town, we show them around, we have to buy hotels, we have to buy food for them. And so that incentive fund also allows us to host them on their pre-planning trips when we try to get them to schedule their event. So a huge impact from group business that we have here. Major room nights and every standard that you can look at, you see that not only are we making an impact, Visit Corpus Christi, but group business, conventions, sports, and film and music are now making an impact in Corpus Christi as well. And then public relations, I thought this might be of interest. I've mentioned before that anytime, I wouldn't say anytime, the overwhelming majority of the time when Corpus Christi is in some sort of a list of the top 10 best places, or there's a national story written about them, that is our work that are trying to develop relationships with these writers, educating them on Corpus Christi and trying to get them to write these stories. And you see that in the last year, Forbes, Travel and Leisure, Texas Highway, AAA, even Fox News have all wrote stories about Corpus Christi or included Corpus Christi in their stories about the best places to go. And that is because of our PR and communications team efforts to bring those writers to Corpus Christi, educate them on a partnership with another city when it comes to international travel and tourism and how we're going to be working that. Taking another step with film and music, taking another step with the sports. We are working with the Chamber of Commerce this year for the annual event in Austin. So Visit Corpus Christi and the Chamber are going to be partnering together along with the Economic Development Corporation to host the Chamber Day, Corpus Christi Chamber Day, and we're going to be bringing some of our clients from Austin in the convention and sports and film world to that event as well, to show them the kind of support that we have in our community for their events. And, obviously we're just going to keep looking at how we can bring more people to the community. And the very last slide that I have before I'll answer any questions if anybody has is we are as transparent as any organization is out there. Everything that we have and we do can be seen on transparencc.com. Any of our budgets, any of our audits, any of our business plans, strategic plans, and everything in between can go and look at that. And then the very last thing that I'll say, I know I messaged all of you, but I want to say this on a microphone, is that at the annual Destinations International Conference 4 weeks ago, our organization is already an accredited organization. And there's only 200 organizations in the world, tourism organizations, that are accredited. And what that means is that we go through a process to ensure that we follow best practices and standards in our financials and our operations, even sales and marketing policies that achieve a level of best practice where other organizations can emulate what we do. At this year, every 4 years we go through this reaccreditation process. So we went through that process again, and what we achieved this year is what is called DMAP, which is the acronym for the accreditation with distinction. With distinction means that there's only 29 cities in the world. So we're one of 200 cities that have the accreditation. There's only 29 cities in the world that have the distinction that is best practices. And as a matter of fact, our submission was so good and so looked upon that they have asked someone from our staff to be on the board of that organization that goes through those policies. And they've also asked us to work with them on ways that we can share our policy out into the open to the world as a guide of how to operate an organization in a best practice form. So that's something that we're very, very proud of as an organization, and hopefully something that all of you are proud of as well, because when you tie that together with this transparencc.com, what that means is that we're trying to be as transparent as possible in everything we do. We share everything, and we're very proud of it. So at that time, I will turn it over to any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Brett. That was a very good presentation. We really do appreciate it. I don't see any questions or comments. We appreciate everything. This is very thorough. Okay, we do. We have one. This is very thorough, Brett, so thank you. Because we can refer back to this and go to certain links like the transparencc.com. That's great. Councilman Pusley.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just two things real quick. Brett, first of all, I want to congratulate you and your organization. I think y'all do an outstanding job for this city and advertising our tourism industry and all the things that we have to offer here, and I think it's just going to get better as the future goes along. I have one request. Can we figure out how to get those guys that fly the drones in unison and do the,
Yeah.
Have you seen that? Yeah.
Yes, we've had many conversations with a company similar to that and do a drone show.
Yeah.
And there's a good possibility that the first time we do it, it will not be in Corpus Christi, actually. It will be in a different city for a very specific sales reason. But that is something that we have talked about at the local level as well as talk to some of the partners in the community about joining forces and doing something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Very impactful. Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought it'd be really cool, especially with the fact that, our military and the university and all that are highly involved in the drone technology business. So,
agree.
Anyway, thank you very much. I appreciate all the great things.
Thank you, Brett.
Thank you.
Councilman Suckley, do I hear you? Did you have a comment? I'm not sure. Maybe not. Okay.
No, I was actually without audio for about 5 minutes. I'm in the middle of a thunderstorm, but I can hear you all now. So, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Brett, thank you very much. We appreciate y'all.
Great job.
Great job.
Great job.
Okay, and last, we're going to do budget wrap-up.
Right, so this is the first conversation with City Council on what could be the budget amendment list. So Eddie's going to present it today, and then this is this will be similar to what we'll present next Tuesday, with the exception that any additional comments made today by the council will incorporate those into next Tuesday's presentation. So the amendments are to either add more more expenditures, reduce some more areas, and make some revenue adjustments. The amendments this morning are focused pretty much only on the general fund. The LEPC fund has a small amendment, and then I believe that's in the streets. The streets has a small, one of our standalone street funds. We're going to use more fund balance, and so Eddie will go over that. So this primarily focuses on the general fund because that's where that's where the concerns have been from the council and the community. And with that, we'll turn it over to Eddie. That begins on page, what page is that on here?
54.
64? 54. Okay, so page 54 is the beginning of Eddie's presentation.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Eddie Houlihan with the Office of Management and Budget. I'm going to review with you what's occurred in the last month since the budget was presented to Council on July 30th, and most importantly, the potential budget amendments. So we did have 7 community input sessions, a couple more than we normally have been having in the years past, and it's tried a different format at some of the locations early in the process. The average attendance was about 35 citizens. There was a couple that had substantially about double that, but the average attendance was around 35. And in looking back at the comments that were by citizens at these community input sessions, they focused on libraries, senior centers, public safety, code compliance, and our homelessness issues. This is the 5th of 5 workshops. Every Thursday in August, we had a workshop. The first one being August the 1st, and of course the last one being today. Now to the budget amendments, potential amendments. The first number there is a net revenue adjustment, some decreases, increases in revenues, and also a use of fund balance in order to restore and add some of the things listed below. The first of which, the proposed budget did include reducing code compliance officers, 5 code compliance officers. This proposal would add those 5 back, a little over $284,000. The next item there is there was a budget of $600,000, $400,000 for mowing, and $200,000 for demolition. That was reduced in the budget. This proposal is to add $200,000 of the $400,000 back for mowing, and to add $100,000 of the $200,000 back for the demolition, for a total of $300,000. The next item is the Garcia Library. The library director did present some alternative hours plan a couple of weeks ago at the workshop, and so this item restores 40 of the 55 hours to the Garcia Library. Next item is restoring full operations for the Oso Bay Learning Center. 3 months, and we do have a high level of confidence that we will have a partner in this endeavor starting January 1. If for some reason that doesn't materialize, we'll go back and come up with another proposal. Next item is proposal is to restore the Greenwood Senior Center operations for about $181,000. And also restoring the 2 animal care kennel technicians that were reduced in the proposed budget for about $78,000. The next item is we hear quite a bit about communication, first from the council and also in our 7 community input sessions about we need to do more communications, better communications. So this is an item that several other Texas cities are using, an item we've looked at in the past, and we are recommending that we add this, a community text messaging service pilot project for $300,000. The next item is the North Beach community. We heard from the North Beach community about doing some things out there with the Kiwanis baseball field for $100,000. And lastly, we are proposing to add funding for 1 grant writer position for a little over $63,000.
Do we have one? Is this a second one?
We have one, but the council said numerous times, let's add a second one. So this would be a
I'm all
second
for
one.
it,
It'll
but
probably
this is
pay
the
for
second
itself, you know? Yeah, this is a second one.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah. We move slow around here, Councilman.
Yeah. And you know what we might be interested in seeing is, you know, what the grant writer, I know she's one grant writer for many departments. I'm not sure how you prioritize her work, Peter, but it'd be nice to see what she is working on and what she is accomplishing and from what department.
We'll get that. I've asked for that myself, and then we'll strategize on this one.
Quarterly even, especially adding another one.
Right.
I mean, we desperately need another grant writer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, let me get Ms. Campos.
Thank you, Mayor. And yes, thank you, Councilman Pusley, for being an advocate for the extra grant writer. But I've been on that case forever, for years. So yes, there was more than one of us. But I thank you for making this come to fruition. I just wanted to confirm on the Greenwood Senior Center, what are the hours of operation? Are they going to be the 8 to 4?
Yeah, it's the same hours that
Okay,
exist
good.
today. Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yeah.
and so I understand that we still will be looking into the future as to what's going to happen in the future for that. As you know, most of the members, I guess they're called members, is that?
Clients, members,
Clients,
residents,
members,
seniors, yes, ma'am, friends.
Yeah, okay.
Friends.
Friends,
Yeah.
members, yes. They've been telling me, and I've been going. Yesterday, I ended up going to Broadmoor and to Greenwood. And I'm telling you, there's just excitement and so much activity going on. And I just want to thank the staff out there for just doing a wonderful, beautiful job. I know that Greenwood hasn't been open as long as the others, but they're already, I don't know, tripling the numbers, and that's because of us, just people listening to our meetings and say, what? Okay.
Yeah, nice and new in there, too.
Yeah,
So that's a great one, yes.
There was something that happened yesterday, though. I guess the air condition maybe went out, the chiller, but I saw a van, I think addressing that. But anyway, I just wanted to assure the public that the Greenwood is going to remain with the same hours.
It is, you're correct.
Okay,
Yes,
thank
ma'am.
you.
Councilman Hunter.
Thank you. So thank you for the Greenwood questions, council member. What about the Oso Bay Learning Center? We're still getting rid of the part-time positions?
No, so on the Oso Bay, we're recommending with this amendment that we keep everything exactly the same for the next 3 months. The partner agency that wants to fund it 100% would become effective January 1. We still have to work out all the details. So just to keep everything exactly the same from now till January, it'd be the same staff, full-time, part-time. And soon, it should be either this week or next week, we'll be making that announcement of the partner agency. They would fund it at 100%, which is great news for this community. And so that's coming. So for the next 3 months, we will keep it exactly the same, work out the contract details with the partner, and come forward to council in the next probably month or so on that. Should something happen with the partner, we can, 1, look for another one, 2, bring alternate proposals to council on how do we keep it open, or in what format.
So, and the partner agency will basically just take up, run it exactly how it's run, not any additional charges, nothing like that?
Exactly.
Okay, just
yes,
making
sir.
sure.
Yeah, no, there's no entrance fee or charges,
Just making sure.
Right.
Community text messaging program.
Right, so for many years at least, the community and members on the council have asked for a way to communicate to the citizenry, not just during the budget workshops or budget input sessions or during bond program, but year round on simple things. Just some cities in Texas use this to announce, new things that come out each week or just reminders. And so we haven't done it to date, but we thought we'd include it as an amendment to this budget to be
I
used.
guess my question on this is when we're talking about a $25 million shortfall a few months ago, to coming to where we are now, is this a need or is this a want?
It depends on how you look at it. I guess the community has expressed concern, like we heard in the 7 workshops, that they want to connect with us more. The council, possibly, is a big one on this, where we're not getting our message out.
I agree.
So from a business standpoint, it's a need, because one of our big parts of the business is communicating. And so using fund balance is how we would pay for it. We would take money out of the general fund balance for the first time of $400,000. It'll probably be less as we go forward.
I think you could achieve the same thing using alternate communication sources. I think the routes that we've been using are either have lost subscriptions or have lost their followings.
That's possible, yeah.
Thank you.
Councilman Hernandez?
I didn't see any mention of Bill Witt. Hopefully it opens at some point. But I know Ed made the suggestion about Collier and Bill Witt. What's the plan there?
So we haven't focused on it for these amendments, and that's something we can do in the next couple of months once it opens. I was there 2 days ago. It's still a few months before it opens. So because of construction delays, like yesterday, there was a half-hour rain event that completely soaked the area. But let me just add
one this morning too.
Yeah, let me just add though, having been on site, that's a beautiful facility. That is an unreal facility. This community is going to love the pool, the lap pool, and the clubhouse. It very well done too by the contractor and the design firm. Beautiful finishes. But let's get to, over these next couple of months, we're going to look at what are the alternatives. Could it be we switch the Collier lap pool hours with this one? Is there leagues? We know there's leagues interested in paying for use of the lap pool. I didn't realize that thing is that big. Seeing it on site, that is
10 lanes. Yep.
Yeah, it's a beautiful facility. So we have time still. So we'll bring some business proposals to council outside of the budget on how do we keep it open longer or year round, and is there some substitution since this pool is heated and it's a bigger lap pool than Collier? Do we do a substitution in the business model? We'll have to engage the community. We don't want to surprise or upset anyone, but so that's something that we'll work on over the next 60 days.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Councilman Klein?
Thank you, Mayor. Eddie, thanks for the presentation. I just wanted to ask you if you could explain or talk a bit more about the text messaging pilot program. I guess I'm not very familiar with that. Just kind of understand what that's about. That's a pretty sizable expense, and I guess that came from in reaction, I guess, to the budget input sessions with the public.
So the input sessions with the public, and also council members have mentioned in the past that we need to do a better job of communicating, and this was a tool we thought we could use to help us do that.
Yeah, some cities use it. San Antonio, just to be upfront about it, they use that system. They've used it probably for over 10 years now. But it would be it's a somewhat of there'd be a back of the house software subscription. Right. It would be a you would tell the city, I want to be on this list. So you provide us your cell phone number. Communications department would manage it. But it would be small things like there's a budget workshop in City Council District 3. That text message gets sent out, and so people use text as a go-to communication device. Right now, the methods include hopefully somebody catches it on our website or a news release. So this would be instant communication on not just scheduled events, but hey, the city's almost done the Bill Witt pool. Short notes like that. What this does and what the community has said in just about all 7 engagement sessions is that these are great, but we lose sight of you all and we don't know what's happening. Is there a way to stay in constant contact with you? Right. And so this is the answer that many cities have used, including San Antonio. They started it when I was there.
Excuse me, if I may, this does would it include surveys? To say,
it could include
survey.
Yeah, the short surveys that Sanio does. Yeah.
Well, and I would say,
using the system.
I don't know, it's an apple and an orange, but in comparison to what was brought forth to us, Councilman Klein, I don't know, within the last month or two, was $1 million, $2 million in communications. I know that was a much greater initiative. But for me, inclusivity and making sure that people know, here's what's happening, here's where, and here's how you can get involved on your phone.
Right. So this would be citywide, all 29 departments would be participating?
It would be our whole enterprise business, yes, sir. Not just one, and it's not just for public meetings, it's any and everything. It's an extreme a communication tool that really engages anybody that wants to be engaged with the city. You would have to self-log, you'd have to give us your cell phone number, and then once you register, much like our community does for the reverse alert, right. Then it's constantly in there. So it could be any and everything. Yeah. You probably don't want to, there's some guidance with you probably don't want to oversaturate and just send stuff willy-nilly because then it loses the effect. But it's to highlight things either daily or weekly, on city matters.
And is that going to be an annual expense or is there
this is a little higher this year because of the one-time startup and probably a little bit of consultant services. So annually to maintain it will probably be less than this.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you. That's all I have. Thanks.
Councilman Pesley.
Okay, so we mentioned cuts at the earlier year, and nobody wants to cut anything, including me. So what are we going to do?
Yeah, so to pay for all this here, Councilman, we still have, remember the budget had $10 million in reductions.
Okay.
And this is restoring how much of it, Eddie, in total approximately? How much is being restored here?
A couple of million.
About 2 million is being restored, and that money is to pay for that came from 1.2 million in additional reductions I provided council back in a few weeks ago Friday. So 1.2 million was from more cuts to include holding 2 positions vacant in the city manager's office and a few other reductions. And then the rest comes from fund balance, from general fund balance. So it's a blend of using one-time monies for one-time things and some recurring as well, recognizing that the IDA revenue will kick in FY26. So things, Councilman, like one concern for you was code compliance. Right. We would restore all the 5 officers, excuse me, in this budget with one-time revenues using fund balance, you know. But by next year, by FY26, that $6 million in new IDA revenue will pay for them. So it's a one-time, you don't want to use one-time monies for recurring expenses, but we already know we're getting $6 million in 26, so that will, you know, it's a one-time restoration.
Okay.
Keeps the same thing with the animal care after meeting with the community, and the 2 kennel techs could have been doable, but let's just keep everything the same there as well. So those 2 kennel techs are restored.
Thank you, yeah.
And
But
so
these funding, to answer your question directly,
yeah,
the amendments being put back into the budget are being funded by the revenue, the additional, or you could say additional.
from fund balance.
From IDAs.
Yeah.
The next page has some
We're taking it
reductions on
out of our savings account.
Yeah, we're taking out of the
Right.
savings account. So let's see here. The proposed alternative reductions included general fund, unreserved fund balance, defunding 2 positions in city manager's office, using vacancy savings. We reduced the department's budgets by, I think, 400,000 overall, 400,000 to 600,000 in vacancy savings. Right. And then we reduced overtime pay by about 200,000.
Right.
So it's additional cuts, use of one-time monies, which we don't encourage, but because we know we're going to get the $6 million more from the industrial district agreements, we hold them over for 1 year, and then we restore them. We fully fund them with recurring monies in 26.
So
Yeah.
with respect to the Garcia Library, so you said you restore 40 of the, so currently the Garcia Library is open 55 hours a week?
Yeah, I'm going to get that
Correct.
schedule here.
Is that right?
It's 50.
The 40 hours is in line with what the library director presented a couple of months ago for the new alternative hours plan that she had for all of the libraries.
So, wait a minute, say that again?
A couple of weeks ago, during the workshop,
Right.
the library director, presented an alternative hours plan for all the libraries. This is part of that, and one of the would be keeping the Garcia Library open for 40 hours as opposed to the
but
55.
that's not my question. My question is, currently it's running at 55 hours a week?
Right.
I mean, it's
Correct.
going to be open on the weekend, obviously.
Yeah, right now it's on the chart Laura provided us when we did the budget workshop. It's 54 hours. That's open 6 days, Monday through Saturday. It's
So now
closed.
we're going to cut it to 40 hours.
Right now we're going to cut it to 40, and primarily that comes from not having it open between the hours of 4 and 6. That's when it's tough to get in because of the school students leaving the school.
Right.
You can't really get in, and when you do, you can't get out because you're trapped in that circle of cars.
Right.
So 2 hours is taken off each day there. A slight reduction on Monday. Monday, right now it's open for it's open for 10 hours today on a Monday. It would open for 4 hours on a Monday. So it's
Did the library director, and I just don't remember, only looked at 5, the back end of my Tahoe is full of books that y'all have given us. And did she give us basically a head count of how many people are going into that library on a daily basis?
Yes, she did do that, and that's one of the reasons that we're recommending restoration, because it is one of the heavier used ones.
Okay.
And Hernandez knows that it's one of the busiest ones in the city, primarily because of its location. It's right in the neighborhood, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it seemed to me like from the comments I was getting, it seemed to be more like it was a senior citizen center than it was a library.
Well, it has that too. Yeah, I mean, we saw news stories on KIII where seniors go there, stay there.
Okay, so my question is, as a taxpayer on a go-forward basis, we are planning to build a new library.
We're planning on building a multi-generational center, so it'll be a library, senior center.
So would we then keep the Garcia Library?
No. Well, in fact, CCISD wants to buy the property from us. They're ready to move us out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we already have a real estate estimate, and we have an agreement to swap property of like value.
Because I know I won't be sitting back here, but if I hear that the city's going to be building a library and keeping this one, I'm going to be up here with Rachel.
We'll give you 3 more minutes on top of the normal time.
I don't know. I don't know.
You just think she's been ugly. Yeah. So anyway, I'm glad to hear that because, I still am of the opinion that we have to respect public schools and what they have to face on a daily basis with respect to security.
Exactly. That's why they do want us. CCISD is a big partner of the city, but they're gently keeping us there, but they would like us to leave because of the security issue.
Okay.
Today's day and age with, the gun violence in schools. So it's a safety risk, not only for them, but for us in the library. Laura has said this, I probably shouldn't say it too loud, but they don't feel 100% safe in that environment.
Yeah.
Because we don't have control of the campus.
Yeah.
Only that little library. That's it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you.
Okay, Councilman Varela.
Thank you, Mayor. Just real quick. First off, thank you for you and your team and, putting all this together. Obviously, we couldn't have done it now without the IDAs. And I think it makes sense because even if we had even for those of proposing annexation, we would have lost that revenue for a year.
We would have had to cut $30 million out of the budget.
Exactly. So that would have put us in a much more difficult position. Right. And so with utilizing that, now that we've argued that, then we're going to have $33 million or $34 million in revenue. Right. And that's not counting any additional expansion of which they have, which I've already heard now that it's already gone up the chain that from industry that, once again, this is an opportunity for them to expand.
Nice.
So I think that helps us over the course of the time. So great job there and great job for your team because it all kind of puts together. And then just real quick on the text messaging thing, I think it's a great idea. One of the things, I'm a small agency, but one of the things that has kept us ahead and competitive with the larger agencies is the communication systems that we have and the technology. We use a very similar situation to that way. We break it down, and it's typically for enrolling, but sometimes some of our employers will ask us, hey, can you send this out on our behalf? Because we don't have that system. So I think it's a great system. There's times that we've used it to say there's a health fair going on, so I think it'd be great for the health department. It could because that's the whole thing. Everybody's got a phone. Yeah. And so if they're getting a text, what is it? That way they know that there's vaccinations that are available. There's, whatever the situation is that we could tear it down to each department. I think communicating, I don't know how many times I've heard, about there's construction going on. If I'd have known there was, then I would have diverted. And so that way, I think it's a great idea. I think it's going to make us more efficient. I think it's a good expenditure, so that way it increases our efficiency, because I know that's what it's done for us. And I think $300,000 is a bargain, because now our system is all encompassing of other items, but basically for the licensing of that software without the training, we pay about $18,000 a year. And I'm just a small agency. So, I'm glad to see, I've joked around with Peter on occasion, I think sometimes my tech is better, and so I'm glad to see that you guys are doing that. Great job. Whoever came up with it, wonderful.
Great. Councilman Hernandez.
Okay, just a couple of things. I know on the library, I know I was planning that out well in advance, and so I understand all the challenges there.
Right.
So, and you highlighted a little bit about moving it over, but it takes time, it takes process, and to say that it's a senior center is kind of accurate, because there is no senior center on the south side.
Right.
There's nothing south of SPID, right? So that's why we talked about a multi-use facility, library, senior center, recreation area, center as one facility, so we don't have to build multiple items.
Right.
And have staff in different areas.
Yeah.
So that thought process is there, and I appreciate the input of Laura and Robert from Parks and the library in that process, along with the engineering department.
Right.
We'll get, that's, 4 years down the road.
Yeah, 3 to 4 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, the other thing I wanted to ask about is that I know you reintroduced the 2 positions on the code compliance.
Right. A total of 5. So initially we had 3 of 5, then from the Friday memo.
Okay, so I had made a suggestion about combining your parking compliance officers and your code compliance officers. Therefore, you get synergies from both. That maybe you can have some cost savings in personnel.
Right.
Have you gone in that direction?
This is the parking attendants, right? Parking enforcement. Yeah. I don't think we had a chance to do that rigor yet, but yeah.
The reason I say that is because if you can combine those, you can, because parking issues are throughout the city.
Yeah.
And the majority of the parking attendant or parking enforcement is downtown.
Yeah.
Right? So if you can combine some of the efforts of both code enforcement and parking enforcement and cross-train, you can have parking, you can do parking citations throughout the city as needed, because there's people parking on their yards or parking the wrong direction
and handicap parking.
Handicap parking. There's issues throughout the city. You can address that with code enforcement officers, and then your parking enforcement officers can address code violations in the areas where they primarily operate.
Right.
And then maybe you can have some reduction based on the synergies that you create with both of those.
Yeah.
I asked you to take a real close look at that. Maybe you can reduce your total count number, but yet still have more code enforcement officers on available.
Right. Yeah, we'll look at it. We'll look at that for the going forward. If anything, we probably wouldn't recommend reducing, because remember Al saying he needs to double his team.
Okay, well then
so
add less code enforcement officers.
Yeah.
And however many parking enforcement officers.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think there's some synergies there.
That is good. Yes.
And I appreciate the decrease in overtime across the various departments. I don't know how many times I've talked about that. About a specific department over there.
Councilman, the what?
The overtime.
Decreasing some overtime budget.
Decreasing some overtime budget.
Pretty much in the big budgets.
I won't wink over there to a particular person.
Chief Markle's like, not me.
Yeah. As well as vacancy savings, we're increasing.
Yeah.
You're right.
We called it turnover where it came from, but we're reducing the amount of money they have in their personnel to recognize they don't keep them filled all the time, so we don't,
Okay. Well, I appreciate that, and maybe we can have an understanding of, okay, what overtime was budgeted and how much was actually used.
Yeah.
And then kind of go from there.
Right. We can do
Okay.
that. Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Campos.
Thank you, Mayor.
Oh, you know what? I'm so sorry. Councilman Dan Suckley was before you, if you don't mind. He's on the phone. Councilman Suckley?
Thanks, Mayor. I thought you forgot about me.
I
but I'm here.
didn't.
Almost.
Almost.
On the, Eddie, on the summary you provided regarding the community meetings, if you're going to be if this summary is going to be going out to the community, I think it's important. I didn't see where it was listed that the Oso Bay wetlands was one of the top topics from the community, because it was probably the top topic. So I think that should be added in there. I didn't see it in there. But with respect to the text messaging, I was kind of surprised by that being added. I know that's been mentioned in the past, but also what's also been mentioned from a couple other council members is regarding our communications have struggled. It's one of our weaknesses in the city. We've acknowledged that, and we have a lot of work to do with kind of our basic blocking and tackling of communications, let alone adding a whole nother product and service that we're going to now try and provide. So I just want to make sure that we're prepared to, we have a plan of how we're going to improve what we're already supposed to be doing, let alone adding a whole nother segment to it for an additional $300,000. So I would like to see some information about how communications, and hopefully we have a permanent director soon, but how communications is going to roll all their different improvements out in the coming fiscal year, especially if we're adding an additional $300,000 to them.
Okay, we hear you, Councilman Suckley. So on the community, we do have a communications director who in fact is starting this coming Monday. And part of her job will be to do just that. What are the core things that we're missing? How do we fix them? And then how do we focus and then grow from there? And so she'll be instrumental in doing that, much like what the chief has done, our fire chief, in his year-long assessment. He didn't just go to, rush to judgment and start changing things. He assessed the entire operation. Or Ernie Garza is another example. We're expecting the same, and we've already talked to our communication director about the same, that she needs to do an assessment of, and she has over a decade's worth of experience in a big organization in Houston, being the communications lead there. So that'll be part of her job on day one, is assessing what are we doing right, what do we have to improve on, where do we need additional focus. But the texting thing is what we heard from the community over and again, and I know this council's talked about it, so I think this is implementable. Peter Collins will help from an IT standpoint on the implementation and his team, so it won't be 100% just on on communications. IT will be a partner in rolling this out as well.
All right, and my last thing, Peter, is after our first budget workshop, I had asked you if we could get, it's great that we're using fund balance. That was the direction that council gave you last year, was to see that in future budgets.
Yes, sir.
And we're doing that. But I wanted to see if we can get a document. I think it's prudent for our council to have it, is a list of all the different uses of fund balance that we're making in this budget, and whether they're a one-time purpose or a recurring purpose. Because if I was going to be on council in the next term, I'd want to know looking ahead as to all these different sources we've used to fund with fund balance, whether we've got to figure out where to account for them in the future budgets if they're going to be recurring items. So.
Right. Yeah, Councilman.
Is that something we can get?
Yes, sir, it is. So Councilman Suckley asked for this several meetings ago, and Heather and team and Eddie in finance are working on that, Councilman. So just as background, in this budget, based on council input over the several years, in the community's statements saying use that excess fund balance, don't carry large fund balances and increase fees and that type of thing. So we're using almost $80 million across all funds in this budget. Now it's even more because of more fund balance. So what Councilman Suckley's asking for is, of all those different funds where we're using fund balance, is the use of fund balance for a one-time, like a one-time increase in the health savings account, or is it recurring? And then the policymakers have to say, is that financially prudent if we're using one time for recurring? So that's coming. We'll have that sent to the council before Tuesday, and recognizing Monday's a holiday, but that'll be distributed and it'll be in print format. They're finalizing the analysis now, Councilman.
Great.
Yes, sir.
Thanks,
okay.
Peter. Appreciate it.
Councilman Pesley.
No,
Thank you. Yeah, I'm next.
She's next.
Oh, right. We switched it up. Yes.
Thank you, Councilman Pesley. Again, wow, two. Two in one day.
Be kind to one another.
Well, since it was mentioned about the IDAs that we're getting an extra $6 million, I had to at least bring up, can you imagine if we were to annex them and we would at least be getting double, not $6 million, but at least double? Because, I mean, I was looking at what Heather, had sent us, and I needed to also mention what we're missing out on, which is on the personal property and the franchise fees. So again, yes, we are getting $6 million, but we could be getting double, if not more. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Pesley.
Yeah, we'd get more money, and then we'd have to go fix their roads and their streets and their water and their storm water, and
we'd have to build fire stations.
Build a fire station. I mean, good God. Anyway, moving right along. So I agree with Councilman Suckley. I think he made some excellent points on all those. I'm not opposed to a text messaging program. In fact, when I was county commissioner, I used Constant Contact. I sent out a newsletter to my constituents in my precinct on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And it was very well received, and I would just update them on the things that were going on in the county. and it's pretty inexpensive to do that. But I'm glad to hear that we're going to have a new communications director. I never understood what our communications director was supposed to be doing.
Right.
But I think if you're going to have a communications director, it ought to be about the whole umbrella of communications for this city.
Right.
And we need to have a plan. We need to have the communications director look at top to bottom what we're doing with respect to informing the public about what we're doing and what's going on with the city, and on a go-forward basis, I would hope that this city would come up with a plan to foster better communications with the public.
Right.
And Peter, like I said, your job is to hire these people and give them direction on what they're supposed to be doing, but I would hope that a communications director is talking about communications with respect to all of this.
Right.
But at some point, we need a plan presented to this council or the next council that says we need to be doing A, B, C, D to, have effective communications about what we're doing.
Yeah.
All the great things that all these departments are doing. I mean, the great youth programs that the police department sponsors every year.
Right.
Nobody knows about that.
Yeah.
I mean, and so those are the kind of things that we just missed the boat on.
I agree.
And, and I really like your videos you've been doing. Those have been great, great information. But anyway.
Yeah, we agree, Councilman.
Those comments, and I agree. We need to look at our fund balance accounts and see where we are on all of them.
And we're going to show you that. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Great. I would just, on the communications, I do understand, there has to be an assessment, but I would say there has to be a sense of urgency in terms of, we can't spend, I don't really know what an assessment calls for, but I would, there has to be a sense of urgency, Peter, because we have to get this going, it's just so critical, as you just heard and you've been hearing.
Yeah.
So let's get this new director,
Director, yes. Director
yeah.
of Communications.
The new director hitting the ground running, especially if she has that kind of background that you mentioned. Great.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Julian.
Okay. So the next slide, we talked a little bit about some of these already, the decreases that we are proposing to pay for some of the restoring and adding of items. So the first is decreasing the general fund transfer to the street department, and they're still getting the money, they're just using street fund balance. So the street fund balance goes from about 2.8 million to about 2.1. So they're still getting the same amount of funding.
You're decreasing it by $699?
Yeah, this is not a decrease in streets. So we're using fund balance, and so out of the streets fund, it had too much fund balance, and we transfer less money from the general fund, being able to use it for these general fund restorations. Okay. So it's important to point out there's no reduction in streets. There's two funds that deal with streets, two accounts. One of the accounts will use fund balance that we don't need. It's in excess of what we should have there. Right. And then we transfer less general fund money.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
The next item is some additional projected vacancy savings of about $628,000. Not funding an assistant city manager and the executive assistant for that assistant city manager for $358,000. Decreasing overtime that was mentioned previously across some various departments for $184,000. Decreasing temporary services for cash management, $70,000. And lastly, as part of the library director's alternative hours plan, she did recommend to decrease a couple of positions there for $70,000.
Okay.
And a couple of things on the other funds, this is just the other side of the street maintenance, and would be decreasing the revenue but taking the money out of the street fund balance. And lastly, in the local emergency planning fund, recently Pat wanted to join in for the Everbridge agreement, which is a reverse alert. So they're going to get it's going to cost them additional money, but they're going to get the funding from Pat County for $8,631. So it's an increase to revenues and an increase to expenditures to offset. And that's the last item that I have. I'll stand by for any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Houlihan.
You're welcome.
Okay. Peter, anything else?
That's it, Mayor and Council. So this is kind of the first step in the reconciliation process. Ultimately, and this is an important point, Council has the sole responsibility of approving the budget, adopting the budget for the city. So we've spent by Tuesday, it'll be 5 weeks with the Council and the community. And so what you've seen today from Eddie, we'll present again on Tuesday. The budget's not over though. If Council has any questions, concerns over the weekend, and including next Tuesday, they can be brought up at the Council meeting at the dais. So ultimately, the budget will be first read on Tuesday, and then the 10th of September will be the second read and adoption. You'll see on the agenda that has already gone out on Monday, but we'll go out again tomorrow. All the revenues are there as well, so there are a few revenue adjustments. So the order is the operating budget, the tax rate, and then all the revenues. That's the order of the budget for next Tuesday. I think the agenda is generally light. I know we're coming back from a holiday. But we'll get that knocked out. The meeting shouldn't last too long on that Tuesday of next week.
Tell Keesnick he has to be here.
Yeah.
We should, and we need.
Exactly. You're going to be sitting in the audience.
Reporting to work on Tuesday.
We'll save him a front row seat. How about that? Okay, great. Well, thank you, Peter. Thank you for all of our staff, everybody who presented and put a lot of work and hours into wonderful presentations today. We really, truly appreciate it. So there being no further business, we will convene the meeting.